something. It's going to be miraculous. John Hannity. I mean, other economists say we're really screwed.
I really think people are sort of we're fine. This is an MRI to find out who's a member of the cult, because only a cult, this is you have to be brainwashed to think what's happening right now is a good idea. This is borderline Mad King stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because he did this by fiat. Congress is sitting there. You know, let me paint the best case scenario. The best case scenario is that rational people win election in 2026, left and right. Like, I do think that we're going to head to a point where this is going to self-destruct anything left of the Republican Party that's not Trumpy. And you'll have a majority that in Congress that sort of essentially takes the car keys away from the tariff car keys away from the executive branch. But until then, I mean, this is just going to crater the economy. And there's no short-term turnaround on this. Even if he withdraws all the tariffs tomorrow, we've lost all of our influence around the world. You know, just think about right now, the shamefulness. We're losing what America is. There's chemical weapons being used by the Russians against the Ukrainians. America's saying nothing. Turkey is rolling back its democracy, arresting the chief opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have said nothing. There's an earthquake where thousands are dead in Myanmar, formerly known maybe Burma to you and me. And it's the Chinese that are leading the humanitarian effort. The United States sent a couple of bucks, right? No USAID. We're not the leading. 99% of the time when there's a disaster, it's American money and American aid, you know, that is there. Not this time. And now we're cratering the global economy. We're attacking penguins. We're attacking, you know, I mean.
You have to explain that. Margie and I talked about that all morning.
Right.
Explain
that. The tariff on the penguins.
Yes, and I know what they're doing, because look, are there countries, I mean, China's been doing this, right, where you can, like, send your goods to a third party, third island, and sort of claim it, you know, some sort of independent status. So in theory, I get why they did that, right, which is to try to take away any potential loopholes to avoid tariffs. So they're even going to tariff, you know, islands without humans.
Yeah, the seals.
In order to avoid any sort of use of those islands as loopholes. But still, it really is. It just feels like a bunch of drunken morons who came up with this, because there's no rational. Nobody. Look at the Treasury Secretary. I mean, that poor. I don't want to say, you know, I'm going to say that poor man. He knew what he was signing up for. But these interviews on CNBC yesterday, I mean, it's so clear he knows this is catastrophic for the U.S. economy. And he's sitting there going, well, don't overreact, Europe. Give us a few days. Maybe this, you know, as if like Trump's going to let this go. I mean, I do think we have a Mad King scenario here.
Well, can we get to?
I really worry about it.
I am totally with you in this, and short of a Mad King scenario, maybe nothing is short of. When the only line in defense of this is that a little bit of short-term pain, and don't worry, manufacturers are going to start building here because they can avoid the tariffs. I assume even the most uninformed person knows that maybe by Trump's fourth term, they'll be building new auto plants here. When they're in a private room with Trump and his advisors, what are they saying to each other about why this is a good idea, short of the fact that the boss says we should do it?
Well, let's just remember, you know, these are the people that are willing to work for Trump. So who do you think you're getting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you getting your best and brightest? Or are you getting people that have decided to just throw away whatever principles and morals they once had and held, and have decided proximity to power matters more than anything else? I do think the last term had a group of people in there that were trying to mitigate the damage.
Oh, no question.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so obvious now. I look back and I think that Mike Pence and Reince Priebus are the two people who orchestrated that staff more than any other two people. I think they, you know, in hindsight, deserve a lot more credit. I mean, we may someday have to give them Presidential Medal of Freedoms for preventing the Great Depression from beginning in 2017, rather than the beginning of the Great Depression 2 here in 2025. But I just, you know, I had some faith in Scott Bessent, because he seemed he had a Treasury Secretary, but he clearly isn't standing up to him. or he's clearly doesn't have his ear. Peter Navarro has just always been this sort of
He's a rabid.
right.
Yeah.
And he's always had he's the one with Trump has these instinctual beliefs that goes back to the 80s, some bizarre, he's been attacked. He attacked the Japanese then because the Japanese were somehow eating America. I, what part of the 80-year period of American dominance of the effing globe does Donald Trump not like over the last
That's
8
what's
years?
so weird. I know. I know.
Somebody with as few skills as he has was able to become wealthy. That's how successful America is.
So why am I not wealthy?
It's really just astonishing why nobody will stand up. America, we didn't just win the world. We didn't just save the world. We helped spread prosperity and freedom to millions, arguably billions. And our economic model has proven to work. The last time we tried this, by the way, Rand Paul said this very well politically last night.
When he voted.
The last time the Republican Party tried this, the Democratic Party controlled Congress for 50 years. Okay?
Yeah.
FDR got 4 terms. You think he got 4 terms because everybody loved FDR, or they were panicked by how poor the Republican Party was at managing the economy because they were a bunch of tariff lovers back then?
By the way,
here we go again.
Yeah.
Rand Paul was one of 4 Republican senators who voted with the Democrats to repeal the tariffs on Canada.
And he made this point last night. He said, literally, the Republican Party didn't get to govern for 50 years.
Well, that was tariffs were in part blamed the recession. I mean, the Depression, the Great Depression was in part blamed. Large parts, some people blamed on tariffs.
I want to get one more tariff thing, but before
the rise of Hitler also was assisted by tariffs.
Very good point. Thank you.
One more tariff thing in a second, but I just want to go back for 30 seconds to the point you made about at least some staff people willing to resist. The story that in Trump 1.0, the story I'll never forget, and maybe it was in the Woodward book. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
When there was some document Trump was about to to sign. South Korea,
and literally Gary Cohn grabbed it, and he was like, "No, don't show it to him."
He took it off Trump's desk and hoped that Trump. I can't believe you knew that one. That Trump would not remember that it was on his desk ready to sign.
In one of these stories this morning, I read about the tariffs. Trump was ranting and raving yesterday about these milk tariffs having to do with Canada. They were 200+% or something, and he forgot
that he
got rid of them the first time around in his first term when he tweaked the NAFTA deal. I guess he forgot that.
One more tariff thing, though, Chuck, because we don't have an economist in the group, but you're the closest we're going to get. Marty and I were talking about the car situation this morning, and I assume we've all learned that even American-made cars, most of them have a huge percentage of foreign manufactured parts.
Layoffs. Did you hear that?
I know
that
900 or something. But the thing that I think people are being naive about when I'm seeing on right-wing websites, buy American cars. Assuming the cost of a car, a comparable foreign car, is going up, I'm making up a number, let's say $10,000, and the implication is you can save $10,000 by buying American. Who thinks there's not going to be price gouging by the American manufacturers, filling a part of the difference between the foreign car price and what you would have otherwise charged? Is that unfair?
Look, I mean, the fact is that's how markets react.
Yeah.
You can call it price gouging, or you can call it reacting to the market, right? One person's price gouge is another person's, hey, I'm just, why'd you raise rent? Well, because I could, right? That's what the market would dictate. And look, it's this, everything is going to go up. This Trump and the people, the handful of people around him that are trying to make the case that this is going to, if you go back to the late 19th century, this is when America was more prosperous, right? And you're sitting there going, this is the equivalent of Donald Trump trying to save the block of ice industry.
Yeah.
Okay. There were blocks of ice. I mean, if you sold blocks of ice in the 1880s, you had a nice business. That was refrigeration. Okay. And then then progress made. But, Donald Trump would have tried to sit there and come up with, we're going to tariff refrigerators and save the block of ice. These are good American workers blocking off this ice up there in New England. It's just nuts. Maybe that's why he wants to buy Greenland, is that we can revitalize the block of ice industry and bring back. He wants to make the 1890s great again.
So I have one question because I am not an economist. I barely understand. This is not my area.
You are not alone, Marjorie. Go ahead.
But the one thing that the pro-Trump
raising price is bad.
Okay.
All we need to know. Right?
But the one thing that some people are saying, what I've been reading this morning, is that because they think a lot of these countries think he is a mad king and they're worried about what he might do next, that they will negotiate with him and try to make promises like these law firms are doing.
160 of them are going to, whatever it is, they're going to negotiate with him?
It's a lot. But the big ones, Japan, for example, to kind of get a better deal for themselves and a less harmful deal for us. You know what I'm saying? Is negotiation possible? This is just a negotiating tool, I guess, is what I'm asking inarticulately.
Well, but this is how a kleptocracy is created. Okay. Yeah. Go back to the law firms that have all capitulated. I go back to that Paul Weiss release that he put out,
horrible,
the managing partner, when he said, we wanted to rally the troops, but it turns out other firms were poaching, and it's like, on one hand, if you really want to try to make Donald Trump, or at least make people around Donald Trump to try to stop him, if you're Japan, you don't negotiate separately. You work with the Europeans and the Chinese and the Koreans, and you basically call the bluff, right? Because you are the other large together. That's the other, essentially the largest economic partners that we have. So I fear this is what Trump wants, right? He thinks he can just split everybody up and do all this, and he gets to play Tony Soprano. And that's why he loves this tariff. But ultimately, the only way we're going to stop this madness and save the global economy, not just the American economy, is Congress has to do its job, take back this authority. There's supposedly a Chuck Grassley and a Democratic senator are introducing, I think it's Murray Cantwell, a bill that would cancel all tariffs in 60 days, because Congress does have this authority, if they're not lifted in 60 days, to try to put some pressure on the administration. But who knows if it'll pass the House, right? I mean, the House right now, Donald Trump's the Speaker of the House and the President of the United States.
Yeah.
And he runs the House Republicans. When he doesn't have an opinion, Mike Johnson can't get a vote passed. That's how you saw what happened there with Anna Paula. Trump didn't give a damn about that. So it didn't. So guess what? Mike Johnson didn't win his vote.
This is the remote voting thing you're talking about?
The remote voting thing for new parents.
Yeah.
And so it's a reminder of how little power Mike Johnson has, or House Republicans. They're all just, bow down in fealty to Trump, because House Republicans need Trump voters more than Senate Republicans do. So if anybody breaks first, it will be the Senate Republicans. But in order for Congress to stand up and take back its authority of the purse, you'd have to have the House and Senate act. And right now, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many Don Bacons there are in the House Republicans.
So, Chuck Todd, I'm sorry, Martha.
We're going to move on to the elections?
Well, I want to say, the Democrats obviously are giddy after they cut the margins from November in the two Florida congressional races.
Yep.
Even though they lost, they beat Musk and elected their liberal judge. But I was falling asleep. I hope you don't take this the wrong way. It wasn't because of you. It was because I was falling asleep anyway. And I'm listening, and you compared it, I think, to like the preseason basketball tournament in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
But then I fell asleep. So can you fill me in?
Basically, the games count, but it isn't going to decide anything. But it does tell you how good the teams are, right? And what are we finding out? Which is the Republicans haven't solved their Trump problem, right? Shotgun Trump voters. They show up for Trump. They don't show up for anybody else.
Yeah.
And the Democrats have the more engaged electorate. And then there's a few other sort of subtleties here, right? You've got, when you look at what happened in Florida, particularly the Panhandle district, and I know this district, I own property in this district, I spend a lot of time in this district. Pensacola proper is in a county called Escambia County. It hadn't voted Democratic in a congressional, presidential, or Senate race since 2006, when Bill Nelson won a complete landslide, carried every county but one in the state, in 2006 when he was running against a woman named Katherine Harris. You may remember Katherine Harris,
the former Secretary of State.
Oh my goodness!
From such soap operas as the Florida recount.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Bush Gore.
Yeah.
So it's a significant. And why am I singling out Escambia? Well, Escambia's got I believe it's one of the largest number of federal government workers are located in the state of
Oh,
Florida, are located in Escambia.
really?
Believe it or not, it's a huge naval base. Guess what? There's a lot of civilian government workers, federal government workers that support a naval base. Then you also, I mean, the entire Pensacola economy essentially runs off of the federal government. Okay. It is a booming place, by the way. Things are going really well. Navy Federal Credit Union, which is a huge, has one of its second largest locations right there. Again, this entire economy, the federal government, and so I don't think that's been law. I think Republicans ought to look at that and say, that's voters. These are Republican-leaning voters, but they all read, okay? They all participate in this economy. They're highly educated people. This is they're not happy with this. And I think was it a significant development that county went blue. Again, this county hasn't gone blue since 2006. And it's teeming with federal government workers.
So, Chuck, Todd, the moment has come. We read the New York Times, and there's some new media venture, and you're raising billions of dollars, something.
Well,
what
I
are you
haven't
doing?
raised a dollar yet. I'm trying.
What are you doing exactly?
Well, two things. Step one is I'm starting my media company here. Relaunched my podcast. The goal is to I'm going to be doing it. I'm joining you guys now on YouTube. I'm also on YouTube,
great.
Starting a YouTube channel. So, you have to start saying those things, right? Subscribe and like.
That's right.
I'm getting the lingo down. So please subscribe and like. Right after you subscribe and like to Jim and Marjorie, you subscribe and like to the Chuck Toddcast channel. We also want to build a podcast network of sort of what I call sort of like-minded reality-based experts, and that's the type of folks I want to create, experts, might have few people lean left, few people lean right, but they're less partisan. They're more expert types. So I'd love to see if I could. That's the type of sort of podcast network that I want to build. But separately, the other part of what I'm trying to build is this project to scale and expand community news, and frankly, just rebuild the local news ecosystem. I think there's a for-profit solution here. I think I'm not going to say what I'm targeting publicly, but I think there's a platform that exists that's worth buying and using that to accelerate this. Because I think, look, I said it in the New York Times. A man named Craig decided classifieds ought to be free.
Yeah.
Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Donald Trump became president, and my son, by the way, he's 18. He goes, he's never seen Seinfeld. He goes, well, what did you mean by the yada yada? I walked him through what I was trying to say.
Great.
I said, well, I guess I got to be careful, right? Like my references are getting a little dated, but I was explaining it to him and he goes, okay, I get it. But it was, that's part two of this. And, look, I am trying to talk about this as much as possible because I'm hoping to will it. If somebody steals my idea, thank you. Like I do not feel that proprietary about it. I think we all know that the problem with the information ecosystem starts at the bottom, not at the top.
That's a very good. I'm totally with you on that.
Didn't you tell us a few weeks ago that was your roots? We asked you what we did before NBC News.
Well, I was
Weren't you an
National Journal.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I was, the hotline, which started the newsletter revolution. We only were successful because we were aggregating local political news. Mm. It doesn't literally trees fall in forests, and they don't. And there's no reporting on it. Congressional trees fall. Nobody sees it.
Hey, Chuck, we only have like 30 seconds left, but I know in the podcast that you just did, you sat down with John Fetterman. I just wonder where you think he fits, if anywhere, in the future of the Democratic Party. He's been unpredictable, needless to say.
Well, I'll tell you what he wants to be.
Pennsylvania, I should say.
Yep. He wants to plow the lane. He's trying to create a lane for somebody to bring the progressives to the pragmatic, with the pragmatists a little bit, if you will, pragmatic center. He's not asking progressives to become centrists. He's basically saying, hey, trying to give an opening. I think he wants to plow the field. He kept focusing. He goes, there's 7 states. He goes, we got to have an agenda that works in those 7 states, and we can worry about everything else later.
Yeah.
And so I think he views himself more as he's built like an offensive lineman, right?
Oh, he's
I think
huge.
think about him as that guy pushing and plowing and trying to create the hole for somebody, look, would he do it? I don't know how comfortable he would be as a full-on campaigner, but if you told me, Klobuchar Fetterman was your ticket, or, if you told me it was Whitmer Fetterman, that would be an interesting ticket. And I think Fetterman really is potentially a wild card here in the 28 race because, look, it's Pennsylvania, right?
Yep.
And he does have, it's in his bones what working class voters are thinking about.
Yeah,
right?
but he's got to lose the hoodie. I'm sorry.
You talked about that.
I hear you. We'll try to get him to quarter zips, right?
So Chuck's wearing if you're only
zip,
listening on the radio. Yes.
I literally all of my clothes are by Eli Manning now. That's what I joke. I'm outfitted by Eli.
Hey, Chuck, congratulations on the reemergence. Go to the YouTube channel for the Chuck Toddcast and subscribe.
Yes, we will be subscribing.
And we're excited about all your
you very much,
prospects.
You guys are the best.
Take care.
You guys are the best.
Talk to you
Love
soon.
You.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Love you too. We've been speaking with Chuck Todd, political analyst, former moderator of Meet the Press. He's just relaunched a reimagined iteration of the Chuck Toddcast. And I missed it when it was gone, and it's back, and it's great. And he did, like I said,
it is really good.
Talk to
Really
John Fetterman from Pennsylvania for a bulk of that. Of course, analyze the elections before that. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts or on his Chuck Toddcast YouTube channel. Okay.
Subscribe.
Coming up after a quick break, your reaction to the new tariffs, to panic around the economy, or if you voted for Trump, is this what you were hoping to see? A more aggressive economic policy, stock market and everyday prices. Be damned, short-term pain for long-term gain. Are you buying it? Stick around. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, the satire, "It's a Mother Effing Pleasure," skewers society's treatment and view of disabled people, and it's had international audiences in hysterics. Ahead of its run in Boston, we talked to one of the brains behind it. Plus, the arthritic March of the Penguins. We'll get an overview of how the New England Aquarium is caring for their geriatric seabirds. That and more today on The Culture Show on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Advocates, the human services provider helping individuals facing mental health, substance use, and other life challenges, is now hiring clinicians. Learn more about their supportive culture and open positions at advocates.org. And Furniture Consignment Gallery, curating pre-owned luxury home furnishings for over 30 years. Current inventory is available to view in their showrooms in Burlington, Natick, Hanover, and Plymouth. More at furnitureconsignment.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, Tuesday of next week. The mayor will join us for an hour at 11, I think. And the auditor will join us for Ask the Auditor on Wednesday in the 1 o'clock hour. So to quote our buddy Henry Santoro, don't look now, but your investment portfolio or retirement account are probably disappearing. Yesterday, Trump followed through on his promise of that BS Liberation Day for Americans. Apparently what he meant that it was liberating us from our money. The president, I'm not going to go into details, imposed something like 10 to 50% tariffs on virtually everything, 25% on foreign cars and foreign car parts, and a bunch of tariffs, as Chuck and Marjorie were talking about, on these uninhabited islands in the middle of nowhere. Here in the U.S., prices are about to go way up while markets have already reacted by nosediving. We mentioned the Dow Jones is down something like 1,500 points. Give us a call or a text and tell us what your reaction is, 12, 14, 16 hours in, 877-301-8970. How worried are you? How angry are you? And if you voted for Donald Trump, he did promise a bunch of things, including tariffs. So is this what you wanted? But he also promised to lower prices on day one. And for those, let me just straighten this. I spent a decent amount of time.
What are you straightening out, Jim?
No, I mean, the economy is not something I understand terribly well either.
Me neither.
I know, but when people have said in the last 18 hours, what is he taxing or tariffing? The answer is everything. I mean, practically everything, and practically every nation. If you
it's
buy
like 106, how many countries?
160 or something. You're gonna there's 60 that have the reciprocal tariff, and then everybody's got
180. 180 countries.
The 10%.
A lot of countries. Places I never heard of.
Can I get back? Also, I'd like to do. People say I can't get in Donald Trump's head. Well, let's try to get in Donald Trump's head. I'm with Chuck about the Mad King kind of thing. Other than the UAW and J.D. Vance and some scared Republican senators and members of the House, who thinks this is a good idea? I mean, seriously, even if you buy
Fox News, Sean Hannity.
Okay, fine, but
start of a new golden age of American wealth and exceptionalism.
But you know
that's
that
what
they
he
don't
said.
think that. I mean, as I said before,
we know that.
When is that new plant going to be built? Is it going to be built tomorrow or in 8 years if it's built at all? In the meantime, short-term pain could be years and years. So your retirement account, if you're one of the 50% of Americans who has some of your retirement money in the stock market, that's going down precipitously. Mm-hmm. If you buy anything from food to cars to electronics, the price is going to go up relatively dramatically. Who is this? Who is he appealing to who's going to say, thank God he's finally dealing with this issue?
Know.
Who is that?
Well, in one of the stories I read this morning, the theory was there that it wasn't so much the Mad King, is that when he survived the assassination attempt, he thought God was watching over him.
And God wants tariffs?
Well, as Chuck Todd just said, he's got a bee in his bonnet for some things that happened. William McKinley,
the block of ice theory,
tariffs, the block of ice theory, and that, or the theory that because he had a horrible father that he's going to destroy everything. I don't know what's going on in his head, but I just have to tell you, Jim, that the flying birds and the penguins and the seals and the invertebrates,
were they?
They're stunned.
Oh, the herd of McDonald's Islands?
10% tariff. Yeah, they're people off these. They're not people actually. They're no people.
They're penguins.
They're penguins. Yeah, off the coast of Australia. Now Chuck says that's because they don't want any loopholes. In Australia, he wants to take away any loophole possibilities for Australia. But as one of our brilliant texters just said, haven't you ever seen a seal jump through a loophole?
Yeah.
And I guess that
we're
means
talking about penguins, though. How many penguins are crawling through loopholes?
Well, they have little wings.
They do it too?
Don't they have little wings?
I don't think they fly, though, Marjorie. I think they sort of shuffle
funny
along.
Walk. Maybe they can jump enough to get through the loophole, but they're outraged. I mean, they're stunned. They were hit with 10% tariffs. There's all these places that were hit with tariffs.
By the way, that's a true story. For those who think this is a joke.
Yeah, a number of other Australian territories were also barraged with tariffs. According to this place called Norfolk Island, has maybe close to 2,000 people. Then Cocos Island, with a population of just 544 people. Norfolk, with the 2,000 people, they got 29% tariff. That's a lot.
You're going to read every one of the countries?
Well, it's
a lot. It's huge.
It's just a little
Well, can I
weird.
make it more real, by the way? I don't think the percentages tell the story. I, this morning, went to 5 different websites that were projecting, it took me a while, about car prices. And here is the average of the 5 websites.
Yep.
A car assembled in the United States, considering virtually all of them have some foreign-made parts, will go up an average of $3,300. A foreign car, meaning not one assembled here, but manufactured in another country, the price will go up anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 on average. Now, repeat again, unless you're in the United Auto Workers, which I used to be, unless you're in the United Auto Workers and they praise this thing, who is the person in America who says that's a really good thing? And I assume they're going to say the same BS we're hearing from the President of the United States is, well, that's going to force manufacturers to build plants here. And by the way, he may be right. I don't know enough to know that he's not. But as I said a couple of times today, that ain't happening in the short term. If it happens at all, it's way down the line. So we want to know, how do you feel about the tariffs? 877-301-8970.
One of our texters is putting a spin on the FDR line.
What is it?
This texter says, we have nothing to fear, but more fear.
Let's start with Deborah in Boston. Deborah, thank you much for your call. We appreciate it. Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to bring up that I think that a lot of what Trump does is distractions, especially like with penguins and stuff.
Yeah.
I think this whole tariff is about shaking down the rest of the world, like he's been shaking down the university.
Yeah.
He's been shaking down the law firm.
Yep.
I also think that because they keep saying, oh, don't overreact, don't do anything. And the other thing is they keep saying they're going to get $7 trillion from this. They want to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. And they have to get it to like neutral budget to do the tax cut for the millionaire and billionaires. And so if they have $7 trillion coming in, that would help them say that it would be neutral.
But Deborah, they don't even need it anymore. I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but there was a story yesterday that the rule that the parliamentarian in the Senate has set, which always is abided by Republicans, Democrats, that if you want to do a huge tax cut, you got to deal with the deficit implications. And they're about to bypass that and suggest that there'll be no additional deficit created by cutting taxes. I assume that's the trickle-down thing. But I'm with you.
Well, trickle down has never worked.
It's never worked.
Never.
Deborah, thanks for your call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970. You know, the distraction thing that Deborah's talking about, when he does individual thing, I like the third term thing, even if he's serious, is absolutely intended to be a distraction. When you are tariffing essentially the whole world and raising the cost of living for virtually every single American, that's not a distraction. I mean, that is right down the center, a punch right in the damn face.
Yeah, but I like when she talked about extortion, because that's what's going on.
Who's she?
The caller.
Oh, the caller. I'm sorry.
That's what is going on at these. This is not about anti-Semitism at these universities. It's about extorting a policy agenda that you want at those
You know why it
universities.
works? Because powerful people are willing to be extorted in this country. University
and the law
leaders,
firms
law
is
firms.
the same thing. It's not even about DEI. I think it's just about on bended knee. He loves the fact that they're all crawling for him.
I think he does.
Lisa in Boylston, thank you for calling.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
So I've only had like Economy 101 in college, but I really don't understand how if these big companies, even just focusing on the automotive industry, if their cars are going to cost more, they're going to have less disposable money. Where are they getting all this money to create these plants and factories in the United States? Rather than have all these taxes, shouldn't our government be like giving out grants or low interest loans or giving them some way to create these factories rather than taking more of their profit away? I just don't understand it.
You understand it better than I do. That's a great point.
Well, also, and Lisa, you're in concert with people who theoretically do understand the economy. J.P. Morgan is saying the tariffs are going to plunge the world into a recession, the world's economy in a recession. So it's a variation on your theme. You do know more than both of us, and I think it's a brilliant analysis. Thanks for sharing it with us. 877-301-8970. I'm really, in all seriousness, I have not heard one credible argument from any person, not one, in defense of these tariffs. I watched J.D. Vance being interviewed at Fox and Friends. It's ridiculous. It's just total talking to the boss. I know Donald Trump's going to be watching me do what I do, so I'm going to praise him and talk about how brilliant this is going to be. And what's the line? Make us all rich again, or make us richer, or whatever.
There's been this theme throughout his life that America's getting screwed by everybody else, and we're paying more for NATO, which we did. We pay more to supporting other countries in their travails, which we have. But you can't say we're screwed when we've had the strongest economy in the entire world since what, the 50s or even the 40s? I don't know how. We have the most productive economy in the world.
Well,
by far.
there is some truth. Again, we'll say for the ninth and final time today, neither you nor I are economics experts, but we have been taken advantage of to some degree.
We have.
But you don't go after your allies, for example, and the way he went after his allies yesterday, and the pain that's going to be caused to their economies as well.
Listen to this. And Trump's telling the United States, this is from the Washington Post, is a poor country beset by outside forces. Not only does the United States, and this is with all the problems we have, not enough money for college, not enough money for housing, not enough money for childcare, not enough money for stuff the Democrats have been promising and haven't produced. But that's just a quick aside. Not only does the U.S. have the largest gross domestic product in the world, but its per capita GDP is much higher than any large country. For instance, GDP per capita in the United States is nearly $90,000, compared with $14,000 for China, $58,000 for Germany, and 36,000 for Japan. So we're not exactly this chump country that we have contributed a lot more to these things. And Trump was right about saying the Europeans should kick in more for NATO. But that's not this.
877-301-8970. Nicole in Dorchester, welcome. Hello.
Hi. So I am against Trump and against these tariffs. I'm Canadian, so this is really, hurting my brethren back in my homeland, my other homeland. But we don't. I kind of tangentially wasn't, touched the kind of textile business, and we don't make any clothes here anymore. We don't. I mean, everything particularly is from China, and we used to have textile mill areas in Massachusetts, and we don't do that anymore. And I think in COVID, people were like, this is a problem. So, well, I don't agree with these tariffs. And I'm just saying that, this idea that, Marjorie just said we were the richest country since World War II. I mean, yeah, but for the past 30 years, it hasn't been distributed evenly. And this is, I think Tim Walz said this is a solution for the 1980s, but I guess I wish the Democrats had honestly tried to fix this problem, because I do think it is a problem that you can buy clothes for $5 from Shein and we make nothing here.
But see, the thing is, Nicole, if we made them here, they wouldn't be $5. They're coming from Vietnam, and they're coming from Cambodia. And when you went to, Old Navy or stores like that, they were really cheap. American stuff costs more because we have higher wages here and stuff. So the idea that we're going to be able to get clothes, manufacture clothes here for what they cost to be made in Vietnam is not going to work. And the thing, and the stuff about textiles, I mean, that's what happened. I mean, I come from a place that was like the textile capital of America, Fall River, but they moved to the South for lower wages, and they moved overseas for lower wages. So you can get them back here, but it's not going to be cheaper.
But Nicole, forget manufacturing. I don't mean that disrespectfully for a second. The plight of the middle class, as you talked about it, I am surely not one to defend the Democrats, because for the most part, their performance has been abysmal. But just compare on one front. I'm also not a big fan of tax cuts. Donald Trump is trying to get tax cuts extended. They're going to primarily benefit the wealthiest Americans. And Kamala Harris and the Democrats have been talking about tax cuts for the middle class. If you support tax cuts, one is targeted to the piece of the population you're concerned about, and one's not. And so I share your concern, but I don't think there's anything that's on Donald Trump's agenda that's going to get us from here to where you want us to be. Nicole, we appreciate your thoughts a lot, though. Thank you.
And not to try to turn into Professor Egan here.
Go ahead.
But as we know, when the middle class thrived was that post-war period up till Ronald Reagan, when it was a highly regulated capitalism. And people bought this idea of this trickle down. Oh, you give all these tax cuts to all these corporations, stuff is going to trickle down to the middle class and the working class. Well, it didn't. I think that's what we've learned, and everything has just gone up and up and up. So,
what were the tax rates when Reagan reduced the top rate to what, in the 30s? Were they in the 50s or then?
No, they were 90%.
No, that was that was Kennedy.
That was Kennedy. Yeah, but they came down to 60%.
Was it 60 in the
I think
Reagan?
it was 60% before Reagan. We have the richest people are not paying their fair share anymore, and that's one of the
90 may be a bit confiscatory. Would you not agree?
90 may have been confiscatory. I think
people?
that was during World War II.
Okay, 877-30.
Because they figured who can afford to pay higher taxes during World War II.
301-8970. We're talking about the tariffs as of 4:00 yesterday. Ron in Brockton. Hi, Ron.
Yeah. Good morning.
Hi.
Yeah, and just for the record, back in the 50s, you are correct. It was Eisenhower. They were 90%.
Mm-hmm.
However, I can remember my grandparents talking about tax shelters back then.
Mm-hmm.
So people were able to hide their income.
Even then, okay.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Now, Joe Biden, to his credit, he brought back a lot of manufacturing jobs in the computer chip manufacturing. But one thing I don't hear is that those jobs were subsidized. I'm a retired electrician. I worked in Portland, Oregon in the mid-'90s when Intel, Fujitsu, SEH, and other they went through a building boom of computer chip manufacturing. That was all private money. And, I made a very good living being a union electrician. I worked in 13 states and 1 U.S. territory. And what I was promised by Robert Reich, Bill Clinton, and Newt Gingrich, and Rush Limbaugh is that, oh no, free trade with Mexico is going to create good-paying jobs in America. It didn't happen. They also said that it was going to cut down on illegal immigration and illegal drug trafficking. And the same thing was said by John Kerry and Bill Clinton.
Okay, what's the bottom line here, Ron? Where are we going? What's the end of the sentence?
NAFTA was a mistake, I think is what you're saying.
I say go with the tariffs. And when what Trump is doing, he's playing a game of chicken with our trading partners. They lower their barriers, we lower our barriers, and you know something? It's fair trade.
Ron, in fact, what other countries are doing are raising their tariffs in response to the retaliatory so-called reciprocal tariffs. And I don't know what kind of income you have as a retiree. But it's, with all due respect, it's very easy to say, let this play out. Average low and moderate income people in this country can't afford to let it play out when prices for virtually everything they depend upon are about to go up. Having said that, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. We've got to take a break.
But I think a lot of people would agree with Philip that
Who's Philip?
Philip, or is that the caller?
Ron,
that NAFTA did not work as well.
Think they agree with him that we should let the tariffs play out?
Well, I think when people are what's the statistic about how many people have like only $400 in their savings account in the United States?
It's close to 50% of the American people.
So you probably can't afford much more. And we know we have a housing crisis and every other kind of crisis in terms of cost of living. So
Andy in Fairhaven texts. He says, "It's official. I'm tired of winning." Do you remember the line? For those who don't recall or aren't paying attention, you're going to get so tired of winning.
Yep.
Candidate Trump has said.
We're going to keep talking about this till the top of the hour. How are you feeling about all these tariffs? And do you feel bad about the poor penguins and the seals out there? And
Enough for the penguins.
They're hitting them with the 10% tariffs out there. It doesn't seem quite fair. 877-301-8970 is the number. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The Trump administration has deported dozens of Venezuelans that it alleges are members of a huge international gang.
I have researched every single arrest claimed to be of a Tren de Aragua person and have found pathetically little justification.
We examine the history of Tren de Aragua and its presence in the U.S. next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Hammond Castle Museum presenting Eric Pape, The Fair God, the largest public collection with many pieces unseen for nearly a century. On view April 5th through April 27th. On-site parking and tours of the museum available. HammondCastle.org. And Arts Emerson presenting The Point, intimate discussions on big questions. Part of GBH Forum Network, presenting a conversation about art and accessibility. Now available at gbh.org/forum-network.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Mark Regan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. Mayor on Tuesday, auditor on Wednesday for Ask the Mayor, Ask the Auditor. We're talking about what everybody in the world is talking about, tariffs at 877-301-8978. As a follow-up to the prior caller, Canada just announced that a non-treaty compliant, I assume that means non-NAFTA covered automobiles from the United States, 25% tariff. Being imposed by Canada. 877-301-8970.
The Washington Post did a great story today about the false things Trump said about tariffs during his announcement, and one of them was about Canada imposing a 250 to 300% tariff on many of our dairy products. And as I said when we were talking to Chuck Todd, Trump apparently forgot that he fixed this when he tweaked NAFTA back in his first term. And the other thing is, this is one of his big things, Trump's big things, that he didn't, he was mad about the income tax being established in the United States. And he thinks that the income tax somehow had to do with the Great Depression. He said yesterday, in 1929, it all came to a very abrupt end with the Great Depression, and it would have never happened if they stayed with the tariff policy. Now, as all these people these economists weighed in, that's just nonsense, that the income tax, of course, was to shift the burden of taxation more to wealthier
And the tariffs
people.
were on low and moderate income
yes,
people.
and Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican, was a big advocate for the income tax.
Yeah.
But the Great Depression, many, if not most historians, credit the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, signed into law in 1930, as worsening the economy and helping to lead to a depression because it sparked a global trade war. So, he's not right about that, Trump. I just want to.
Oh, really?
Well, we're getting a lot of
texts. What are you
texts.
saying? He may have made some stuff up? Is that what you're saying?
We're getting a lot of texts about this, because people are hearing what he says, talking about how that if we just stayed with the tariffs back in the 1930s, we wouldn't have the Depression. Just the opposite.
Can I tell you something? With all due respect, these, talking about the tariff percentages, talking about 1913, it's all important so we have context. The bottom line is virtually everything that people purchase is going to cost more.
I know.
Period.
But
it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest tax increases in the history of the United States of America.
I'm trying to point out to you that if you are in the false news world, and a lot of people who listen to us are, Laura Ingraham, she's on Fox last night, warning congressional Republicans and judges not dare to block any tariffs. Sean Hannity, he says Trump's tariffs will be the start of a new golden age of American wealth and exceptionalism. And they quote the president from his speech yesterday.
Well, can I quote you?
And people
Can I
think,
quote you?
wow,
Where do they
that's
work,
the problem.
Marjorie? Where do they work, Marjorie?
Our staff is making fun of
Where
us.
do they work, Marjorie?
They work at Fox
How much
News.
do they have to pay for lying about Dominion?
Almost $1 billion.
Okay.
But people believe them.
Stephen,
And it
you're
managed
going
me-
to
They're
change
making
that.
fun of me for talking about the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act.
I'm making fun
it
of you
all
too.
comes
Oh
back
my
to the
God.
Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, Jim.
And the Penguins.
And the
Stephen
Penguins.
Lynn, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Hi.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my call. Thanks for all you do.
Yeah.
A couple of quick points, and then I'll hang up. Number one, my husband and I both foresaw this with the stock market coming, and 2 months ago we cashed in both of our retirement accounts and put all of the money into an American Express high-yield savings account.
Wow.
And are reaping the benefits from that. We posted it on Facebook. I hope other people did the same thing.
Did you do that, Jim? I didn't do that. Did you do that?
I've not done it yet. As soon as I figure it out, I'll be doing the same thing.
Steve, good
Go
for
ahead.
you for
But
being
go ahead.
prescient.
Keep going.
The second point is, does anybody see an irony in the fact that all these wealthy American companies sent all their products manufacturing overseas, and that they're the ones that are going to benefit from his tax cuts? I don't understand why Trump isn't going after the same people that he's claiming caused
the problem to begin with.
America.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
because that would be a just outcome, Steve. That's why he's not going after. I mean, you know the answer to your own question. That's his constituency, and that's who he wants to be able to fund greater things going in their direction, as we well know. Steve, that was an excellent call, though. Thank you very much for making it. 877-301-8970. And I repeat, if I hear one more person, you were talking about lies that people believe, one more person saying, well, when he said that I'm going to lower prices on day one, he didn't really mean day one. He meant soon. Well, in fact, how many days is this? 70? How far into this?
I think eggs are cheaper.
Eggs actually are. Well, they're cheap. Yes, they are. I don't know if they're cheaper than when we took over. They're cheaper than when they were the most expensive. Well, forget it, Jim. Bill in the Cape, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Thanks for calling. Hi. Hello?
Hi, Bill.
We'll put Bill on hold. We'll try to get back to him if we can in a few minutes. Let's go to Philip in Newburyport. Hey, Philip.
Hello there. I've heard some very deep and dark and disturbing conspiracy theories to the effect that there is a method to Trump's madness. He actually knows what he's doing because this is all part of the assault on democracy. He's bringing the country down, and that all the kleptocracy also plays into it. That is going to be a shambles, and then he's going to come in and rescue it, possibly by starting a war somewhere. The beginnings of that are already happening, and what we're confused about is not, we think he's crazy because he's irrational, but what we're confused about is what his objectives are. very deep, very disturbing. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, I hope you're wrong, too. I thought you were going to say he's going to destroy the economy and then let Elon Musk buy the country. But I hope you're wrong. I hope you're wrong. But I don't put any conspiracy theory about Donald Trump as not passably credible, because everything has been incredible. Anonymous texter says, I don't know why these are anonymous. You should call these tariffs what they really are, selective national sales tax. And by the way, that's one of the things the Harris campaign did right. These are taxes. They aren't, we shouldn't call them tariffs.
Yeah.
They are taxes on the American people. We don't know
Here's another very dark text. We have a lot of really dark texts.
Well, it's a dark day, Marjorie.
Trump is a malignant narcissist only capable of destroying. Tariffs are going to turn us into a third world country. Musk feeds Trump's madness. If Congress doesn't get its act together, he'll destroy the country. Boy, that's pretty depressing.
Well, can we actually, we only have a minute left. We didn't get to talk about this with Chuck Todd. The conventional wisdom this morning is that after the loss in Wisconsin, where obviously Musk put a lot of energy in $25 or $20 million, and the fact that a lot of the cabinet secretaries have had it with Musk, that apparently at the end of his 130-day thing, which I guess special government employees, whatever he is, it's only 130 days, almost everybody thought we would come up with another scam to continue him. But apparently he's not on the way out in terms of his relationship with Trump, but he may be on the way out in terms of his position to essentially destroy the federal government workforce. So that's a positive development.
Well, I mean, especially when you read what's going on. I mean,
also how they're treating, we don't have time for it now. If you read the accounts about how they're treating these people who are being fired, locked out, they find out when they get their badge to get into the building, the badge doesn't work. It's grotesque.
Yeah, I mean, and RFK Jr. is doing a hell of a job, too, I got to say.
He's really good.
Anyway, coming up after the noontime news, going to be joined by Andrea Cabral. We're going to talk with her. She's former sheriff of Suffolk County. We're going to talk to her about these law firms that are the most powerful and richest law firms in the country.
In Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. That's right after an NPR news break here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Central Square Theater, presenting Her Portmanteau, an explosive fourth play in Boston's You Fought cycle, co-produced with Front Porch Arts Collective, now through April 20th. CentralSquareTheater.org. When a food fair comes to Kembleford, Father Brown already has a lot on his plate, but is he ready for a side dish of unsavory murder? Catch Father Brown tonight at 8 on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio. Are big law firms bending their knees to Trump betraying their own values? Many lawyers who work at these firms, which have capitulated to Trump's demands, seem to think so. We'll talk to former Suffolk County Sheriff Andrea Cabral about that, the unprecedented detention by ICE of a defendant mid-trial, and Karen Reed jury selection.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then former Education Secretary Paul Reville discusses the Fed's clawing back $106 million in unspent COVID funds to mass schools. Janet Mills of Maine defiant to Trump's trans teens demands in sports, and Harvard banning a pro-Palestinian group from campus activities for the rest of the semester. All that and an update on Lizzie Borden, Jim, on the second hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The White House is defending the president's tariffs plans as a necessary restructuring of the U.S. economy, even as the markets react with alarm. This hour, we see the Dow is down more than 1,200 points, or roughly 3% at 40,955. The Nasdaq has fallen more than 4.5%. The S&P is down more than 3.5%. NPR's Tamara Keith reports President Trump is imposing a minimum 10% across-the-board tariff on on virtually all imports to the U.S.
A 10% tariff is the baseline. Countries the Trump administration says have particularly high barriers to trade will face even higher tariffs.
It's a total shift in the way that we've done economic policy in the United States of America, but it was necessary.
That was Vice President J.D. Vance in an interview on Fox and Friends on the Fox News channel. He said this is about bringing back U.S. manufacturing.
For 40 years, we've had an economy that rewards people who ship American jobs overseas and raises taxes on American workers, and we're flipping that on its head.
But that is a long-term strategy. An economist warned the U.S. economy is likely to take a hit as a result of this trade war. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
U.S. District Judge James Boasberg will hear a challenge today to the Trump administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. The law gives the president authority to detain or deport nationals of an enemy nation during wartime or invasion. It had not been invoked since World War II until last month. Trump used it as a basis to deport to Central America hundreds of migrants accused of being members of violent gangs the president designated foreign terrorist organizations. Civil liberties groups argue the administration unlawfully denied the migrants due process and ignored Judge Boasberg's emergency order to halt the deportation flights. A lawsuit filed by the ACLU says the National Institutes of Health must restore more than $1 billion in grants. The organization is also demanding the administration stop its, quote, ideological purge of federally funded research. From member station WBUR, Martha Biebinger has details.
The ACLU claims the NIH's canceling of research because it mentions gender identity, diversity, vaccine hesitancy, and COVID is unconstitutional and unlawful. Harvard Associate Professor Brittany Charlton has lost $5.9 million in contracts because they did not fit Trump administration priorities.
It actually doesn't matter, from my understanding, what the future priorities are, because our current contracts are contracts, and the way in which they are terminating them is very outside the norm.
There's no response yet from the Trump administration.
That's Martha Biebinger reporting. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 1,200 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. More than 35,000 Massachusetts customers of National Grid just hit the lottery. According to the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities, National Grid failed to send timely bills to the tens of thousands of customers this winter due to an issue in its customer billing system. Those delays violated the state's consumer protection regulations, forcing National Grid to waive the charges for customers who were billed more than 60 days late. Also, if the customer already paid their bill, National Grid must credit or refund the money. National Grid says the delayed billing was tied to a deficiency in its billing system identified during the changeover from off-peak to peak rates at the beginning of November. Business groups here in Massachusetts anticipating major economic damage from President Trump's newly announced tariffs. Brooke Thompson heads the Associated Industries of Massachusetts, and she says the threat of a trade war has already rattled financial markets, and she's been hearing from businesses across the Commonwealth.
Saying everything from I'm losing business, I'm losing contracts, to I'm going to have to certainly not bring any new employees on and possibly let some folks go.
And she says exports are critical to the state's economy.
And those are things that we do well in Massachusetts, like vaccines, medical, scientific instruments, semiconductors, right? Those things that we're known for.
Not just taxing goods, but taxing our patients as well. 53 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. This is hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A couple of programming notes. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with a great performance by Boston Lyric Opera of music from the great musical Carousel. Ask the Mayor next Tuesday. Michelle will be with us from 11 to noon at the library. DiZoglio, the state auditor, will be at the Boston Public Library the next day, Wednesday, and Maura Healey will be at the Boston Public Library on Friday, the 25th. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there. Before we introduce Andrea Cabral, we had hundreds of texts about the tariff thing, and our colleagues, our teammates here wanted us to read just a few, and there's important ones. Here's an anonymous one. I was planning to buy an Australian penguin, but now I have to settle for a cheaper American pigeon, which is sad, actually.
That's right. There are big tariffs on the penguins.
Another anonymous texter, he has lowered the price of eggs. Yes, our nest eggs. Thank you very much.
And
you have one.
Listen to Pamela.
Yeah.
I wanted to move our money out of the market in January, and my ridiculously optimistic husband did not agree. He returns from a business trip today, and his stuff is in the driveway, and the locks have been changed.
Well, there you go. So those are three of the more salient comments here. Here with us now is former Suffolk County Sheriff, former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety. That would be Andrea Cabral. Hello, Andrea.
Hello, Jim. Hello, Marjorie.
Hey there.
Hello, Andrea Cabral. Well, let's start with something that happened locally, and the District Attorney Kevin Hayden is pretty upset about it, that federal ICE officials interrupted an ongoing trial to go after the defendant in that trial in the middle of the trial with the jury there and everything else. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to start my segment the way I probably will start most of my segments in the future by saying that nothing that anyone sees coming out of the Trump administration should be taken in a vacuum. It is all part of a much larger plan to basically, eliminate democracy and sort of replace it with fascism. Not even sort of. That's what they're doing. Most of it's illegal, unconstitutional, immoral, or some combination of all three. People should be paying, I hope, as much as they can, as close attention as possible to everything you're seeing here. I have never, and I think the DA echoes this, and I think Judge Jack Lew, who oversaw a lot of the reform of the courts, when he's now retired, he's former Superior Court judge, now retired. Jack Lew is quoted in the Boston Globe story as well. And DA Hayden says, they've never seen this happen before. ICE has never done anything like this. The fact that something like this would happen and that there wouldn't be a thought as to whether or not it constituted obstruction of justice by federal agents.
Yeah.
How could you arrest someone mid-trial? How could you have any sort of experience in criminal justice, any sort of knowledge of the law or the Constitution, which you're required to have, interrupt a trial to remove a defendant mid-trial, especially when you are on the witness list yourself? The agent in question here, a gentleman by the name of Brian Sullivan, is listed as a witness in the trial for the prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
He obstructed his own trial, his own case. It's just astonishing. Now, the federal government has the agency has the right to ask for the case to be removed to the federal court, which ICE has done, not surprisingly in this case, where it would be handled by the U.S. attorney, and I'm sure the contempt citation will be dismissed. I'm not sure how that bodes for a potential charge of obstruction of justice. And wouldn't there be an inherent conflict removing it to the federal court where the Justice Department could exercise their authority to simply dismiss it, where if you're talking about qualified immunity for an ICE agent, because most federal employees have qualified immunity for acts undertaken in their official capacity, but it's qualified. If you do something that is so obviously unconstitutional, such as violating the constitutional rights of a defendant who is mid-trial, you don't have qualified immunity. So this has opened up quite a can of worms between the federal government and state government and the limits of the authority of each.
Well, that is a perfect segue, because you have, Andrea just said, how could you, and then she finished a sentence. You have a couple of how could you questions.
Yeah, well, I am obsessed by the ICE arrest of Ramea Ostrak from Tufts, the woman that we all saw the video of her being surrounded by these people, with some of them with masks on and not identifying who they were, and hauled off to Louisiana. And then this Mahmoud Khalil, who's been hauled off to Louisiana for weeks now. Mm-hmm. So the government has shown no evidence of pro-Hamas
None.
It's all about pro-Palestinians, and I mean, you can see where people get upset. I mean, look at the ambulances that were just attacked and the people shot in the head. In Gaza. They were supposedly like the Red Cross worker people. I mean, maybe they weren't, but that's the claim. In any case, so they've been gone now for days. Khalil's been there for weeks. Are we just going to let these people sit there? Where are the courts?
Before Andrea answers, Carol Rose, who is part of the defense team for Ozturk, says there's a habeas motion before the court to get it released. But Marjorie's point is they're not released.
They're not released.
There's no evidence.
So it's kind of, it's very scary. You can just throw people in a detention center in Louisiana.
Let them rot.
And these are people legally in the United States. They're not.
Well, that's part of why I said, this is the way this whole thing plays out, even in terms of the local case that we have here and the cases that you mentioned. We need to keep a close eye on it, because until and unless judges start jailing the federal officials at the state level who are refusing to comply, nothing is going to happen. And I'm not one to immediately call for the jailing of people who feel as though they're doing the job that they're.
Why not? Go ahead. Call for the jailing. Go ahead.
Well, but this is the extreme that the Trump administration is pushing it to, because it is very clear. The point that Marjorie made is so critical. This is the disappearing of people,
right?
Because you don't like their views. This is the clear violation of their constitutional rights under the First Amendment and any one of a number of other amendments, where the government to this point has not shown a single court, a single judge, any credible evidence to back up the seizure of a person, the literal seizure of a person, which violates their constitutional rights. And until there start to be consequences that force the federal government to either come up with proof, which I don't think they're going to be able to do, or stop doing this, it's not going to stop, because the Trump administration has clearly shown they have no intention of complying with the rule of law. Put this all in the context that these two folks that you talk about that are being held in Louisiana. There's another guy who is, I think he's from here, but originally from El Salvador, a citizen.
Oh, yeah.
As well. Put that in the context of the fact that this is all being led by a president who pardoned every single insurrectionist from January 6th, where people literally sat and watched people, watched them incite an insurrection and watched them conduct an insurrection. And here that a student, an international student, co-writes an op-ed in a university newspaper, and she's disappeared to Louisiana. That's what's happening in the United States of America.
So we're talking to Andrea Cabral. Can we stay in Massachusetts for a couple of minutes? 2 days ago, I think this is day 3 of the jury selection in the Karen Reed case. They need 17 jurors, counting alternates. I guess it's 12 and 5. And as of the end of yesterday, 7 have been chosen, which I think is faster than they expected it to go. But can you explain, I know you've done this numerous times with us in different trials, what the standard for disqualification or inclusion on a jury, after I give you these stats on the jurors. So let's go to day 1 only. There were 91 jurors who were called. 78 of them said they'd either talked about or seen information about the case. 40 of them said they'd formed an opinion about the case, and 16 of them said they had a bias for either side, meaning the prosecution or the defense. Which of those categories of people talked or seen about the case, formed an opinion about the case, developed a bias for one side or the other? Which would cause any of those people not to be allowed to be on a jury in the Karen Reed case?
They're developing a bias. The standard is not, do you know absolutely nothing about anything? You really don't want jurors that are so out of touch with what's going on that they're not, they probably couldn't even focus on what was going on.
That's right. They've been watching the Shopping Network for like the last 7 years.
Right. So, and in some cases, and this is a clear example of that, it is impossible, nearly impossible, to find someone, who hasn't heard or seen something. The standard is whether or not despite what you've heard or seen, you can be impartial, and you hope that people answer that question honestly. Sort of in my ideal world, everybody does. We know for a fact that that's probably not true that everybody does, but courts can only go on people's answers and the fact that they're sworn when they answer those questions, and they essentially give the answers under oath.
Before you leave that, you stole I hate the expression stole my thunder, and I was about to use it, but you did. There are 13 of those 91 who said they knew nothing about the case. How can you, and then, by the way, every potential juror is from Norfolk County, so they're from somewhere relatively. Norfolk is not like Middlesex County, which is like half the state. It's not that big. How can 13, you tried cases forever. I assume people know before she was the sheriff, before she was the secretary, she was in the prosecutor's office. How can 13 people, what is 13 out of 91? Is like 15%?
I don't know.
How can 15% of the people randomly called from Norfolk County not know anything about the Karen Reed
They want to be on the jury, Jim.
Maybe that is, really, how's that possible?
Jim, of the 245 million eligible voters, 90 million people, all of whom watched the first Trump administration.
Okay.
Great
and
point.
watched what Joe Biden had to do to rectify a bunch of those, the things that he did.
I got it.
Failed to be bothered to vote. Given that, in that context, I think it's a really good question, but in that context, right? And these are some of the same people that are now texting you about tariffs and everything else that he's doing. Among them, there have to be some that didn't vote.
Yeah.
In that context, could you find 16 out of this first crew in Norfolk County who've never heard of the
yes.
or say they've never heard of the Karen Reed case? I bet you can.
Before we move on from this, I just want to go back to where we were. There's this big rally, this hands-off rally. They're all over the country. There's going to be one in Boston, 11-2. The Dropkick Murphys apparently are going to participate.
Acoustic.
Unfortunately, it's going to rain, so I'm a little worried about how many people will show up. I hope people do anyway. But my question is, if you are not an American citizen born here with your driver's license or something in your pocket, I would be nervous. I mean, if I were, I wouldn't go. I would be afraid of who might be there at that rally. Am I being paranoid?
No. It's one of the things that D.A. Hayden pointed out in his press conference yesterday about the chilling effect that this mid-trial ICE arrest has had. And he's saying, and the DA's office knows this, you have a sense of who will come forward and who will not to report a crime, to report being the victim of a crime, to simply assist law enforcement in any way to protect themselves, to protect their neighbors. People aren't going to do it if it means that they or someone that they love will suffer the consequences of deportation. And Jim makes this point all the time. Whether they are ultimately successful or not, the real point, beyond the cruelty being the point, the real point is to have a chilling effect on people's ability to live and work freely. People who've done nothing more than come here to this country under a different set of rules than people's ancestors did years ago to make a better life. They simply came at a time when the prohibitions on doing that or doing it in an unfettered way now exist in a way that it didn't, years and years and decades ago.
By the way, you have encouraged, and I think wisely, people, if you care about these issues, and if you're a person, you should be there on Saturday. It really, that's exactly the kind of, I don't want to discourage people at all. That's exactly the kind of place where you would think the Tom Homans of the world want to make a showing.
Listen, I'm worried about it.
Show how tough they are.
I'm worried about it because, I've been critical once or twice of the president.
So, Andrea Cabral, we all know about the Signal chat thing. America discussed it for days and days. And another issue about which I was totally wrong, I contended nobody cares about this. In fact, probably got stronger numbers of concern from even Trump supporters and others than any issue that has happened in Trump's second term. Well, now we find out that Walls, the National Security Advisor, wasn't just on Signal that day. He was on Signal at least 20 other times and discussing government issues. My favorite part of the story, though, is to show not only how inept and irresponsible he is, My favorite part of the story, which is not getting nearly enough attention, the only way Politico knew about this is because 4 of the people from the government who were on the calls leaked to Politico that they were on signal to begin with. Now,
and they've got to watch out because they're going to have lie detector tests, for seeing who's leaking to
Let
the
me just say
media.
one more thing. My favorite bite of the night, which unfortunately we don't have, is Pam Bondi, when she was the Attorney General of Florida, is talking about Hillary Clinton. And she says she's talking to Fox News, and this is from several years ago, obviously, because now she's Attorney General of the United States. We talk about Clinton. She says there is no no law enforcement person in America. And she leans into the camera. I repeat, there is no law enforcement person in America who would not prosecute this violation by Hillary Clinton. She is now the Attorney General, and when she was asked whether she was going to prosecute for that first signal thing with Hegseth, her response was, let me talk about Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, both of whom were investigated, by the way. What's your reaction to the fact that this guy is essentially on signal every day, apparently, and he's the national security guy?
Plus, it was a Gmail thing, too. Remember?
Well, and the Gmail thing the other day, too. I forgot, yeah.
Right. No, it's hard to sort of, encapsulate the recklessness, the incompetence, the hypocrisy. It's almost like a whole new vocabulary needs to be developed for America in 2025 to sort of, talk about these things in a way that adequately describes them. Let's start here. They've been lying about whether or not classified information was transmitted in that original signal leak. It clearly was.
Mm-hmm.
And just the idea that Hillary Clinton having a private server to which no one else had access, by the way, and only did it because when she was overseas, there were oftentimes difficult times connecting to the United States where she needed to be in touch with the White House. Never leaked anything, nothing ever, it was never compromised. Literally turned into something where someone who was running for president was kept from winning that election. But her emails was the big catchphrase. This is now happening on just such a massive scale. And the response and this is what I keep saying, the response from the Trump administration is, we don't care how you feel about this. We don't care what it is that we've done wrong. We don't have a standard by which we judge ourselves, anything similar to the one that we judge others, by which we judge others. We have no intention of holding ourselves to any standard. So nothing you say, nothing you do, no hue and cry is going to make a difference. The only thing he will do, which I believe he started to do, is they realized after the elections in Florida and the Wisconsin Supreme Court election that Elon Musk makes a really great boogeyman and a really great villain. So they're going to move him out of the Doge. He won't be a special federal employee, so he's no longer a target. And Walz may be on the chopping block as well, because then Trump can move on and say he wasn't at fault. That one was at fault.
Yeah.
Musk is at fault and Walz is at fault, and I got rid of them and they disappointed me. But that's the only thing that he has any intention of doing, and he'll replace these folks with people who are the same, if not worse. So don't expect that, it's that's not to say that this shouldn't remain a story that stays in the headlines. Our allies no longer see us as an ally. They don't trust us.
Which is so sad.
Our business endangers their agents. Yeah. It endangers our military. It endangers our intelligence assets. And it's all unfolding, as I say, in the context of an administration that simply if you don't admit that you've done something wrong, it means you have no intention of correcting it, and they don't. So this is going to continue to be a problem for us domestically and internationally, one which if it hasn't already, and I believe it has, is going to cost lives.
By the way, speaking of costing lives, we don't have time to discuss this, but I just wanted to throw this in. One of the other decisions the administration has taken, talking about under the cruelty is the point category, unaccompanied minors who came across the border were entitled to legal representation until it was ended by the Trump administration. So 12-year-old kid who's come across the border by him or herself, or maybe with his sister who's a minor, are no longer entitled to have a lawyer represent them or anybody represent them before an immigration court. So the 7 or 8 or 12-year-old has got to represent themselves unless they're pro bono lawyers, enough of them.
How about the little kids right in Massachusetts we talked about yesterday? Head Start is being decimated. DCF is getting decimated, all these places.
And a judge has ordered them to restore the funding.
I know that.
But to my earlier point, they haven't done it yet. Let me just put that in the context of this. In the context of taking away the funding that both you and Marjorie are talking about, part of the Paul Weiss law firm settlement with Trump, when he went after them for the DEI stuff, was that they provide $40 million in pro bono services for causes that the Trump administration favors. They're literally extorting a law firm, although the law firm is going willingly, shame on them, extorting a law firm for $40 million of free work to the organizations like the Federalist Society and all conservative organizations that want free legal representation, while simultaneously depriving the neediest of services they've been getting for decades under administrations where the cruelty wasn't the point.
I want to just end by saying that while Paul Weiss agreed to provide $40 million, I'm going to talk about this at the end of the hour, $40 million in free legal assistance to Trump's pet causes. Yeah. The next 3 firms to capitulate agreed to provide $100 million, $100 million, and $100 million in free legal services to whatever Trump's cause. It is unbelievable. Hey, Andrea, it's good to see you, as always. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very
Andrea
much,
Cabral.
Andrea. We have been speaking with former Suffolk County Sheriff and former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral, who joins us every week. After a quick break, I have to laugh, because if I didn't laugh, I'd be crying. From disaster to disaster. We're going to talk to former Massachusetts Education Secretary Paul Reville about these massive, massive cuts to the schools in Massachusetts. We're also going to talk to him about the difference between time out in schools and seclusion in schools. Paul Reville is next. Listen to 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
There's nothing cooler than an evening of live jazz. I'm Al Davis. GBH Music and Jazz Boston are teaming up for a series of unforgettable concerts. Jazz now at our Brighton studios. From world sounds to the American songbook.
Programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. United around a vision for public access to revolutionary education, UMass Amherst gives students the opportunity to seek solutions to the challenges of today. Learn more at umass.edu. And Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty believes progress happens when people feel secure and exists to help people embrace today and pursue tomorrow. Learn more at libertymutual.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow with some fabulous music from a couple of performers of Carousel, Boston Lyric Opera. Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday next week, the mayor joins us for an hour at 11 to 12 for Ask the Mayor. And Wednesday in the 1 o'clock hour, Ask the Auditor with Diana DiZoglio. Joined now in Studio 3 by Paul Reville. Paul's the former Massachusetts Education Secretary, a former Secretary of Education for Massachusetts, professor at Harvard University's Graduate School of Education, where he also leads the Ed Redesign Lab. Hello there, Paul.
Hello, Jim. Good to be with you, Jim and Marjorie.
Yeah, thank you.
You paused for a second. Were you deciding whether it was good to be with us, or you had to think through it first, or no?
No, whether I had to respond to you directly because you're
fine.
such a force, but I wanted to include
That's
Marjorie.
Right. Force majeure.
Yeah.
Very force
Let's not get into that. Thank you. It's a touchy subject.
Just save that for later discussions.
Okay. So, bad news, particularly for Springfield and New Bedford, which I guess have not spent all of their COVID money. Now they may lose the money that was awarded to them during the pandemic, and Massachusetts in a total loss of $106 million in unspent COVID
it's unfortunate.
funds.
I mean, these are some districts that I think wisely chose to spread out their investments. They didn't do what a lot of other districts had done, which was to kind of overinvest in operating costs, and therefore, when the federal money went away, they were facing a cliff. So they spread them out over time. They're on capital investments. They have situations like contracts with developers or union contracts that spread the money out. They'd gotten prior permission in many instances, waivers from the department to extend. The deadline wasn't till September 30th, and suddenly they're going to pull this. So, I mean, this gets to one of these cases that's going to have to be adjudicated in terms of contract law. I assume that, these districts had an agreement with the government about this money, and now, midstream it's being pulled back.
I looked at the list in the Boston Globe. Boston's losing $3.5 million, which obviously is not, it's still $3.5 million, but it's not huge. $47 million to Springfield and whatever it is in New Bedford, 17, is real money and has real consequences, no?
No, absolutely. And there are different kinds of consequences than pulling $47 million out of Springfield's budget, which would be challenging if it was part of the operating budget.
Oh, I see.
Year. Yeah. It's capital projects that are midstream. So, for example,
like HVAC, wasn't it a big air?
Yeah, they were doing HVAC.
Thing?
Another one was doing a health clinic that was partly built, and now they're going to have to stop in the middle of the building, and who knows how they're going to settle various contracts they have on the ground with their contractors and so forth.
Well, on a related note, I guess, we were just handed a couple of minutes ago something that NPR is reporting. Let me read you the first line of it. The Trump administration has threatened to withhold federal funds from public schools if they have diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And in a letter to state leaders across the country, the Education Department, I guess it still exists, said that Title I funding aimed at schools with high proportions of low-income students will be threatened if schools failed to follow its directive. We're in a state where the governor and the attorney general and the mayor of the biggest city have said we're not changing how we are. So there's going to be a big battle over roughly, how much? Feds roughly 10% of the state?
Right, 10%, yeah.
This could be a battle royale, no?
No, it's real money at stake, and the federal government has always known that. They're given just enough money to be able to have conditions on the spending of that money. One of the conditions, that these are categorical grants that are most at risk here, are for low-income students and for students with disabilities. The Republican Party is quite interested in making these block grants rather than categorical
grants. Could you explain
grants.
what that means for people, for those who don't know?
So in the cases that I just mentioned, Title I is what we call a categorical grant. It's directed to a specific population, which is low-income youth. It's compensatory funding to help local districts with the added expenses of meeting the challenges of educating low-income youth. Likewise, in special education, we have the Individuals with Disabilities Act. So it's targeted at them. Republican Party wants to make these block grants, which means take off all the provisions, simply give that federal money to the governor, and whatever they want to spend it on in education, they can go ahead and do. Well, first of all, Congress has set up these targets. And so Congress would have to, in the same way that if they're going to eliminate the Department of Education, Congress has to vote for it. Congress would also have to vote to change the targeting of these grants. But that doesn't stop the administration from acting as though it can summarily do this. And it's ironic in this sense. Part of the rationale for giving block grants to states rather than categorical grants is to say, well, let's not have a whole bunch of federal regulation, federal government telling us what to do. We believe in local control.
And they know best is the argument about what they locally need. What's wrong with that argument?
Well, because what you just read is an assertion of the federal government's knowledge and determination to overreach into classrooms and schools and to tell them what to do on DEI, on what's in the curriculum, on how you teach, on how you run your sports programs. All of these things that were supposed to be local prerogatives, suddenly the federal government feels they know better than locals. At the same time, they're saying, well, let's give the money over to locals and let them do it their way. So that's a conflict that needs to be resolved. But clearly, the answer to why they do this is, they're fighting a cultural war here, and that's what they think gets the highest visibility and response from their base, so that's what they continue to do.
One of the things, long before the second Trump administration, we would get texts, and there are always stories in the paper about how special needs families struggle to get the care they need because it's very expensive. You may have to ship a kid to a different town, and it's very expensive for the local budget. So there's already a fight over scarce funds for special needs stuff.
No question.
So if they're losing more money.
That scarcity is going to add up for families, and on top of it, Marjorie, one of the areas of recourse that families had if they weren't being treated fairly in their local district and students' needs weren't being met would be to appeal to the state level, and if that was unsuccessful, you could appeal to the federal level, to the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education, and they would have to address every single case that came in. Well, they've effectively abolished the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education, so there's no appeal process now.
By the way, before we go ahead, you just reminded me when you brought that up, there was a painful story in the Globe that is not on our list to talk about today, but people should read it. The title is "A Pain in the Ass," in quotes. Northampton school leaders caught on hot mic disparaging dad who pushed for his disabled kids' rights. And it is just, what happened, assuming this is all legit, and they don't know because there's no video who said what, but I assume they can ultimately connect voices to individuals. What happens to these school officials if this is all proven to be true?
Well, I'm not sure you can take legal action in this situation, and particularly if there's difficulty identifying people. It does express what Marjorie was talking about, is there is constant tension at the local level. Even if you have a positive view of the district's responsibility to work with disabled families, reasonable people can disagree over what is the package of services or whether or not this particular student should be sent to a very expensive Chapter 766 school off campus.
It's like a half-hour bus ride away.
That's not the case here, because in this, again, this is one situation. In this one case, the district leaders in Northampton, again, one of the alleged most progressive communities in the state, would, quote, go to war with his father over his parental advocacy, and even more stunning, writes the Globe, they admitted the district does not provide students with disabilities, like his child, the guy's child, with the services to which they are legally entitled. I mean, it's just...
Well, that's right. But there are, all I'm saying is there are reasonable people can disagree over that entitlement and to what extent you go to in the district budget to supply that. So this dispute reflects that. What I said earlier is, the Court of Appeals for this is really the Office of Civil Rights at the federal level, and now there's
gone.
I mean, ideally, this parent could say, okay, they're not giving me what I need to get in Northampton, I'm going to appeal this up. And now, the ability to do that is limited. You still can go to the state level. And obviously, the language was involved in here was reprehensible, and the approach to dealing with this parent. But I have seen this time and time again at the local level, where you have parents, understandably, or advocates they've hired, pushing as hard as possible to get the maximum benefit for their child.
Well, you talked about your own special needs kids.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of hostility toward parents like you trying to get what.
No, absolutely.
Because it's so expensive.
It's understandable. If I'm superintendent of the district, I'm trying to protect the district budget, and there's a limited pie that comes in, and this is why the federal funding is important to it. And if I give more in this direction, you see some of these smaller districts, and if they have a family move in August with 3 children who have significant special needs, it can throw their budget off altogether, and they have to lay off teachers before
it's
September.
A law.
And you know
I mean, you know better than I. Well, they got to figure it out.
And you also see a lot of rental apartment shopping to the towns that have the ability to fund the special needs programs.
Absolutely.
You see that in Brookline all the time. People coming in from elsewhere, sometimes out of state, because they know that.
Well, because Massachusetts generally has a reputation for doing well by special needs.
And Rhode Island, you don't get that much. Get for your buck in Rhode Island.
That's not nice.
Well, it's true. I don't think they don't have the money. I mean, I think people come to Mass. I think a lot of parents. I mean, I've seen it in Brookline. Wonderful people. They know that certain school districts in this state will spend more money, and that Massachusetts will spend more money, so they will move here from other states.
What are you going to say next? They don't even have sidewalks in New Hampshire. Is that your next point?
No, I'm just saying that.
I know.
That
of course, assumes that they can afford the housing.
Well, that's right. They have to have 17 people living in the apartment, I guess, to afford to be in the apartment. Okay.
We're talking to Paul Reville.
So, a lot of uproar over at your college over there at Harvard. There's just been a big effort not to allow this pro-Palestinian group to protest anymore because of infractions that they allegedly did about blocking exits and so forth in a protest earlier. And also, you got people like Larry Summers writing pieces in the New York Times, your former president, saying that Harvard should be standing up. So
you also left out the federal government threatening $9 billion in grants.
Right. Grants to Harvard and the Harvard teaching hospitals. So, I mean, are people beside themselves?
People are beside themselves. I mean, there's a pervasive atmosphere of anxiety and apprehension and just befuddlement about what's going to come next, what's going to be next in the news. And, you know, people are awaiting the consequences. So we're all girding in our respective schools for, you know, significant cutbacks because they're coming after the endowment. They're coming after the research. Not only are they cutting off certain contracts altogether, but they're reducing the overhead rate for researchers. And so there are definitely going to be a whole bunch of cutbacks, and cutbacks, incidentally, that affect the hospitals, for example.
That's
that
what scares me to death. Cancer research, Alzheimer's research, And
the onus behind this, the pretext is going in after anti-Semitism. And obviously, nobody wants anti-Semitism on our campus. I think the campus didn't do such a good job during the Gaza uprising, but have done a number of things. And of course, I'm speaking for myself here. I'm not speaking for the university. But they've done a number of things to address that situation and to improve that situation.
I think a lot of people have stopped believing it has anything to do with anti-Semitism.
Well, I think, you know, you got to read between the lines. So we have J.D. Vance saying, you know, higher education and the elite institutions are the enemy. And this is really part of the culture war, you know, to attack those who represent some kind of independent opinion. And to be sure, there are excesses on identity, on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and overemphasizing identity and underemphasizing, you know, variety of perspectives and things. We've got things we need to improve in higher education. No question.
I know I'm a broken record, and we talk about this every day, but since you're in the university community, former Secretary of Education, you both are talking about how this really isn't about their concern, the Trump people's concern about anti-Semitism. But then you read the letters from the university presidents responding,
pretending
defending themselves, saying we're not anti-Semitic. Here are the 14 things we're doing. The lying down by, I mean, Columbia is so far the worst example, basically surrendering, in my opinion, academic freedom. And the president at the time, she's gone. The new one, who's interim, Claire Shipman, former news person, is threatened. Are you, as somebody who's been in the education world for your whole life, not shocked, appalled, whatever the verb is, that there is not a stronger response to Trump from the leadership of the university community in this country?
Well, I think it's a similar phenomenon you see with the big law firms.
It's disgusting with the big law firms.
Well, the people feel financially threatened because they're coming right at the day-to-day bread and butter and at the payroll of these universities as a way to cripple them. So, you know, they're being cautious. Frankly, I've been waiting because there's have been a lot of talk about how institutions like Harvard will have difficulty standing up as a single institution.
Exactly. So why don't they join together with the others?
Together collaboratively. And I keep hearing rumors that there are a lot of conversations going on to make that happen, but the reality is it hasn't happened, and the clock is ticking, and it's long overdue.
Do you know Jeff Sonnenfeld from formerly Harvard? He was on yesterday, and he said, I shouldn't tell you this. He said I shouldn't tell you this like 9 times yesterday. One of the things he shouldn't tell us is he said that 50 colleges were coming together this weekend to do essentially this, but it's been a long time.
It has been a long time, and it's overdue, and it should happen now.
You know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but let me put you on the spot. There was something like 600 faculty members who sent a letter to the interim president, Alan, Garber, urging the governing board at Harvard to resist demands from Trump. Did you sign the thing?
It was never shown to me. I never saw it.
Would you have signed it?
Yeah, I probably would have signed. I mean, I'd have to see the text of the letter, but I'd be certainly willing to sign it.
So let's step away from Harvard just for a second. How does, this may be an impossible question, if a really smart person who's running a university says, well, we got to play the game because it's going to be economic ruin, just like that pathetic Brad Karp from Paul Weiss did when he met with Trump, do they believe that when you kowtow to a bully, that the bully's not going to come back and ask for more? Do they think they're going to convince Trump, oh, we're really not anti-Semitic, so you shouldn't take all our... I mean, what is the thinking?
Or also acting like it is about anti-Semitism.
Exactly, I said a minute
You're
ago.
absolutely right about the terrible language and the terrible anti-Semitism and the.
But that's not what Trump cares about.
No, but
it's
not,
a pretext.
It's a pretext. But the college presidents are coming. Harvard did this, listing all the things they've done to crack down on anti-Semitism, as if that's what this is about, instead of kind of extortion.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that. Yeah, this pretext is being used, and they're coming at us, and they're coming at the law firms. But what institutions like the law firms are doing is this is a bread and butter issue for them. These law firms have enormous profit margins, so they're doing well. They have a cushion just as we have a cushion.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear the
$20 million for that.
And they're protecting their income line. So I don't think they're thinking about the ideology here. They're thinking, okay, at least in the near term, and I think this is very near-term focused thinking. We're going to get hit financially by this, and we're going to have problems. So the best way to protect ourselves is to kowtow, and then this too will go away. The pendulum will swing, and we'll be all right. The problem is, they're losing clients, they're losing recruits. People, some campuses have said to these law firms,
Georgetown.
don't bother coming here to recruit people.
Yeah, I love that.
Because you're not the kind of law firm that with the integrity that we'd like to send our students to. So I think the university are going to have to come to that point at a certain point.
But, just to step back for a second and state the obvious, when there is surrender across the board in so many powerful parts of our society, what's the end game? The end game is you've surrendered your autonomy, your freedom, your power, your control over democracy to an authoritarian leader. I mean, that is what's happening before our eyes.
Yeah, no, and that is worrisome. And I can only think that some of these folks are thinking, this is a short-term strategy. We have more power that we can use later on, but we don't want to take these hits to our budget or to our profit margin in the case of the law firms. And maybe we can avoid it by playing nice now. But, if this gets worse, we're going to have to take more severe measures and stand up and show some backbone.
Okay, can we go from the large to the small? But this matters to a lot of families. In the last few minutes we have, Marjorie teased this before. What's going on with these so-called timeouts in the public schools in Massachusetts?
Yeah, well, I mean, timeout rooms have been used to deal with behavioral problems with children in schools, and but they've been variously used by school districts, and some are fairly benign open rooms where people are put in order to get
just calm
free
down,
moment and calm down. And others are, much more secure, protective devices. If somebody's out of behaviors out of control or physical, they put them in a room. And some of these are locked, and some of the kids are prevented from coming out of the rooms. So parents, in particular, advocacy groups are looking for tighter regulations on what you can use these rooms for, and when you can use them, and for how long you can use them, and what conditions ought to prevail in these rooms. So what the Department of Education is doing is putting out some regulations to indicate that in all instances it's got to be voluntary. Parents have to sign on to agree that this methodology can be applied to their students. And
prospectively, you mean give this or
I think that's the intent.
Okay,
I haven't read the exact regulation, but I don't. It's the sort of coverage of it indicates that it has to be voluntary. So I don't know how you do that voluntarily in the midst of
Obviously,
a behavioral incident.
Yeah.
So you'd have to get to that, and to be more prescriptive at the state level about how and when you can use these rooms. When is a temporary timeout appropriate? What kind of physical manifestations and behavior and threat constitute sufficient reason to put somebody in a secure timeout situation. So I think it's a needed clarification. When the department puts something out for regulation, they're going to get a lot of feedback and different points of view on how to do it. So this isn't the final word, but it's a good thing for them to be working on.
I mean, by the way, we should also mention, because we don't have time to do it, that you wrote a really good piece explaining, I think, simply for people what the significance of the decimation of the education department is in the Boston Globe recently, and I would urge people to to read it. And essentially the end game there is they can't shut it down, as we know, without congressional approval. So they're just decimating the thing. They're just essentially gutting it.
Yeah. And, one wonders how they think they're going to enforce their, for example, their DEI mandates when they have no people to do that because they're firing everybody. So we'll see what happens there. But one of the disturbing things to me that we don't get to talking about, and I mentioned briefly in the article, is just that, at a time when virtually every developed nation in the world is investing in higher education and trying to make higher education more accessible and affordable because they see it as critical to the development of their economy, we're sending a signal that higher education isn't even important enough to meet the national interest and merit a cabinet seat. And, we're basically going to disinvest in it. And we're going to attack our most elite institutions that have been responsible for providing this country for leadership.
And be sure that no foreign student would ever be willing to come
well, that's right.
to the United States.
Right. And that's one of the things we're all rooting for is we're already seeing it in admissions numbers. People are,
who would want to come here from another country
it's
right
frightening
now?
When we have Stasi-like operations picking people up on the street and deporting them to places where they're stuck. I mean, you'd be quite nervous coming in here.
Paul Reville, it's good to see you. And by the way, your son, as I think
he was great.
He was spectacular.
So proud of him.
He was really great.
He's going to cure the country of all their addictions. And we have many.
Casper is the name of his group. You should check it out. It's terrific.
We've been
Good to
speaking
see you,
with
Paul.
former Massachusetts Education Secretary Paul Reville, former Secretary of Education for Massachusetts and professor at Harvard University's Graduate School of Education, where he also leads the Ed Redesign Lab. Thank you very much, Paul, and congratulations on raising that great kid of yours. After a quick break, first it was one more thing, then we changed to two more things. Today we have to do 2.5 more things, as I have a lot to say. 2.5 more things next on Boston Public Radio 89.7. Look at Jim looking at me like, what's
I don't
this?
want to get screwed again.
We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, lawyers for the Tufts international graduate student arrested by ICE are in federal court today to face the Trump administration. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is celebrating the defeat of a lawsuit challenging the White Stadium renovation. And honeybees are dying at an unprecedented rate, posing a threat to wildlife and the human food supply. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its 2025-2026 season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Dr. Anthony Fauci, Tipping Point author Malcolm Gladwell, Ken Burns, and conservation photographer Christina Mittermeier. BostonSpeakers.org. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer, the Unclaimed Property Division, is holding unclaimed funds from utility bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. Marjorie, what is your one more thing?
Well, I have to hurry up because Jim has a lot to say today.
I do have a lot to say.
Tough time. If you want to get cheered up, go online and look at the pictures of Sunny Williams being greeted by her labs after 9 months away. It's a really great uplifting video. See how happy the dogs are to see her. And my hometown angle, I come from Fall River, Jim,
I knew that.
where Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her father 40 whacks, and when she saw what she had done, she gave her mother 41. Actually, it was her stepmother.
Whatever.
But in any case,
doesn't your family own the Lizzie Borden house?
The house, not the house she killed him in, and I think she
allegedly
did kill him.
Yeah.
But the house she moved to afterwards, in Maplecroft.
Okay.
So anyway, they have all these gruesome pictures of poor dead Mr. Borden lying on his couch. They're for sale at this world famous New York City book fair. So if you want to see how he looked dead with all the blood in his head, and poor stepmother sprawled in the bedroom. You know what I learned though?
No.
They rearranged the bodies for the pictures. Yeah, because they laced Mr. Borden's shoes back on. He took his shoes off to take a nap. So if you want to get those, they're at this New York City book fair, and you can go down and buy the original murder shots.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll let you go ahead though, Jim.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's 2 more things, not Marjorie's thing. Here's the deal. we've touched on this twice today, actually, with Paul Reville and Andrea Cabral, but didn't get through it. I am sort of a lawyer, and I actually took my work when I was pretty much a real lawyer pretty seriously. I want to repeat how disgusted I am by the complete and total capitulation of some of America's most prominent and wealthiest law firms, those which caved and agreed to provide $40 million, as I said, $100 million, $100 million, and $100 million of free legal assistance to Trump's pet causes, plus those top 10 revenue-generating law firms which refused to sign on to a statement in support of the few law firms that are actually fighting, like Perkins Coie. Here, by the way, is the man you are all quaking in fear of, Donald Trump, speaking at a Women's History Month event at the White House last month, bragging about how easy it's been to get colleges and law firms to get on bended knee. Okay, perfect. Okay. Okay.
Why don't you say what he said?
Well, what he said was essentially nobody can believe, including law firms that have been so horrible, law firms that nobody would believe, and they're just saying, where do I sign? Where do I sign? Nobody can believe it, and there's more coming. Who in their right mind would hire one of these law firms? And if you were dumb enough to try to hire one of these law firms when the person or entity you wanted to sue was Trump connected, would they even agree to represent you? The answer is no. So here are the 4 firms I'm aware of so far who should be in the hole of shame for their capitulation. Paul Weiss, not one person, Marjorie, Skadden Arps, yeah. Wilkie Farr and Gallagher, and Milbank. And here's to not only the law firms willing to fight, and later, either tomorrow or Monday, I'll give you some names, but I specifically want to mention one young associate, a lot of them in their 20s, who have resigned from some of these firms. Let's mention this 27-year-old. His name is Thomas Sipp.
Love him.
Formerly of Skadden Arps. He's quoted by the New York Times in his resignation letter, quote, "Skadden is on the wrong side of history. I could no longer stay knowing someday I would have to explain why I stayed. Him I would hire, Marjorie."
I know. It's
Thomas
great.
Sipp, 27 years old.
And, you know, some of these big law firms, the partner salaries are about $20 million. They got enough money to last them until they're dead. So the
associates make this kid quit a $250,000 job.
Well, I hope he gets
at
hired
age 27. So do I.
Kudos to the Jesuits down there at Georgetown who don't want these law firms to become
Georgetown Law. Yeah,
that's right. You're not going to recruit our students.
I agree with you.
You bums.
Shame on all the others. Don't hire them.
Okay. Anyway, that was a very nice job, Jim.
Thank you. I really
After the 1 o'clock news, you're going to be joined.
You can access thousands of hours of PBS programs online with GBH Passport. If you're already a member, just register online today or become a member and sign up instantly at gbh.org/passport.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Celebrity Series, presenting What Makes It Great with Rob Capello. Capello and musicians shine a light on the songs of Simon and Garfunkel, April 5th at NEC's Jordan Hall. Tickets at celebrityseries.org. And Seasons 4, the outdoor living store in Lexington, featuring over 100 styles of outdoor furniture delivered throughout New England, plus a wide selection of plants, statuary, and garden accessories. April event in progress. Seasons4.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on a Trump-free third hour of Boston Public Radio, we hope. Boston Globe Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein joins to talk about the tricky business of giving love advice to young people still figuring themselves out. And it's not just romantic relationships that causes grief. Meredith will discuss a recent column about navigating friendships at work.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's Am I the A-Hole Day? A husband is in the doghouse for constant whistling and vocalizing at home, driving his poor wife up the walls. But he says he's just expressing content, letting the stress out. What do you do when your partner just won't let you make your strange body sounds? We open the phone and text lines. Who's the bigger jerk, the whistler or the complainer? It's all ahead. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump's 25% tariffs on imports of cars and parts took effect today. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says his government is retaliating.
Today I'm announcing that the government of Canada will be responding by matching the U.S. approach, with 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA, our North American Free Trade Agreement.
But Carney says unlike Trump's auto tariffs, Canada's will not affect auto parts. He says Canada knows the benefits of the neighbor's integrated production system. Yesterday, the U.S. Senate held a largely symbolic vote to cancel the tariffs on Canada. 4 Republican senators voted with the Democrats to rebuke the president's actions that they warn will actually harm American businesses and consumers. President Trump argues the U.S. has been unfairly subjected to higher tariffs than other countries. He says the auto and other sweeping tariffs he's announced will help level the playing field. His Truth Social site has posted a list comparing tariffs on U.S. goods with those on other countries. African countries are reeling. Kate Bartlett reports the U.S.'s highest tariffs will hit the tiny nation of Lesotho.
Last month, Trump joked no one knew where Lesotho was. This week, he levied 50% tariffs on the tiny mountain kingdom that is one of the poorest nations in the world. Lesotho has a large trade surplus with the U.S., to which it exports mainly textiles and diamonds. South Africa was also hit by some of the highest tariffs at 31%, which Pretoria labeled punitive. African island nations Madagascar and Mauritius were hit with 47% and 40% tariffs respectively. For NPR News, I'm Kate Bartlett in Johannesburg.
A House Republican proposal to sell some federal public lands is generating swift backlash from environmentalists, and even some in the GOP. NPR's Kirk Sigler with details.
House Republicans already inserted language into budget rules that could make it easier to sell federal land. And now, as lawmakers look for more revenue to offset President Trump's tax cuts, the controversy is again heating up, even as specifics of any plan are murky. Republicans from western states where the federal government owns half or more of the land have long tried to wrest control of it in favor of more mining and logging, or lately home construction. Yet some in the GOP from states where hunting and hiking access is a political force have introduced bipartisan legislation to prevent any sales. This latest budget controversy follows the U.S. Supreme Court declining last fall to hear a challenge by the state of Utah over federal control of land in that state. Kirk Sigler, NPR News, Boise.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down nearly 1,300 points, or more than 3%, at 40,931. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Businesses across Massachusetts continue to express alarm over the retaliatory tariffs announced by President Trump. Brooke Thompson heads the Associated Industries of Massachusetts, and she says businesses across the state are already forecasting lower revenues and having to freeze hiring because of the trade war. She says she knows of one local transportation company that's anticipating their costs will go up some $2 million a month. It's a hit that they cannot absorb.
And they were very clear with me they're going to immediately pass that on to consumers. So it's certainly a real concern and threat to our businesses, but it's going to affect the entire economy because we already know our families are squeezed, particularly in Massachusetts, right?
Thompson says Massachusetts exports over $33 billion worth of goods each year to over 200 markets globally. She says around 20% of the state's jobs are tied to those exports. Well, fans of Bruce Springsteen will be happy to know he's releasing 7 new studio albums on June 27th titled Tracks to The Lost Albums. Says the music was written and recorded between 1983 and 2018. The news arrived this morning via Instagram. The 83-song collection is mostly previously unreleased tracks stuffed from his vault. 74 of those tracks are never-before-heard songs, all in a box set that will also include a 100-page hardcover book. Woo. 58 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Here's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston. Hour number 3, actually,
Whatever
at Boston
it is.
Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with some great live music. The Boston Lyric Opera is going to entertain us all with music from Carousel. It's going to be absolutely great. We wanted to mention who else is going to be there tomorrow. Oh, Lee Pelton. Lee Pelton is in
Lee
Carousel.
Pelton's performing from the Boston Foundation in Carousel. He's going to be with us tomorrow, too.
Okay, I'm on the wrong page.
Well, that's
You have to
good.
finish for
I'm
me.
not going to help you
The
out.
mayor's going to be here next Tuesday from 11 to 12. That's Michelle Wu.
What hour
and
is
the
it
governor's
of the
11 to
show?
12. I
No,
just
what
said
hour
11
of the
to
show
12.
today is it?
It is now hour number 3.
Okay, good.
And Ask the Governor is Friday the 25th.
Who's the governor? Who's the governor? I'm quizzing you as best.
Jim, I'm not going to answer.
Do you also think Meredith's hair, she's on Zoom, looks totally different? Let me introduce her. Joining us now on Zoom is Boston Globe advice columnist Meredith Goldstein, host of the Love Letters podcast. Is your hair like totally different or something?
No, sometimes I feel like when I come meet you at the library or I come on, I feel so comfortable with you that I'm basically in my pajamas wearing a winter hat. And today I'm in the office for a meeting. And I was thinking as I looked at myself on Zoom, I never cleaned myself up for these two. And they deserve a better version of me.
You look fabulous, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Not that you
Thank you.
don't ordinarily, but you look great. So before we get to your stuff, is dating in the age of tariffs going to be any different than it was before 4 o'clock yesterday?
So I have a lot of questions about this too, because I was sitting there last night looking at a significant other who is very concerned about craft brewing and how much a beer is in an aluminum can. And then I realized I didn't know a lot about where things are made and how things are made. And so I do think the effect of every little small thing that becomes more expensive. Everything is expensive. I mean, we did a whole podcast episode about how expensive it is for people to date in cities.
Yes.
And if with restaurant fees and all these things, they start getting bigger and bigger for whatever reason. So I have to imagine that tariffs and just fear about what's going to happen to our money and fear about our jobs. Like, can you really spend $100 here and there on dates? I think all of this is making people a little panicky. And to be single is expensive. To be dating is expensive.
Yeah, it's especially around here. It's so expensive. But let's start with these your podcasts, both of which I
Can
found.
I say you have no bigger fan of your podcast than this woman, by the way.
I love it.
The
I love
only
it.
horrible part about having you on, Meredith, is the whole morning is Margie describing every second of every podcast, like reliving it in real time.
Because I didn't know these video games that help you with your empathy and your dating life and choosing. I didn't know there was any such thing as that.
Well, so I should get into my history with video games is minimal.
Yeah,
and
me too.
And very minimal. And I got the very first Nintendo as my parents were getting a divorce, and I played it to sort of, it was escapism. I was Super Mario and Luigi were having a good time. And then I had no interest. And then many, many years later, some of these very popular narrative video games, and by that I mean they tell a story you get from start to finish. It's not so much about winning as it is about going through like a book-like story. Suddenly, they were being adapted into TV shows. So I watched The Last of Us. I thought it was beautiful.
Yes.
And what I did not realize is that line for line, this comes from the video game in many ways. So I started playing, and I am terrible at it, but I have learned that there are many games now, and with the help of these experts who I interviewed, playing a video game might be your best way to connect with other humans, to connect with the person you love, and to practice how to be social in the real world. And I am kind of astounded that this is a practice that is now changing me when I really don't like video games at all, or at least what I used to. I like Tetris. But this is not Tetris anymore. This is an emotional journey. It's like a choose your own adventure book.
Is this the It Takes Two game? Am I on the right?
Yeah, that's it. We have sound from that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can set this up, which is that I was introduced to a game called It Takes Two, which is a narrative game about two people having marital trouble who have to navigate their own backyard as shrunken little figures. And so, yes, they're doing all these video game things. They're jumping across, ponds, and they're running through trees. But as characters, you have to work with the person you're playing with. And you have to talk, and you have to communicate. And the storyline itself is about a very love letters topic, which is about the end of a relationship or the change in a relationship. And I love this game.
Okay, here it is.
Do you want to know what this story is really about? Huh? This is the story of Cody and May. change back, then you need to fix your relationship.
So, because I haven't done this myself, okay, tell people about The Last of Us and tell people how this video game takes off on that.
So with It Takes Two, it is a much more playful story about a divorcing couple figuring out how to communicate so that they can be there for their daughter. The Last of Us, which you might have seen on HBO, is just, I mean, it is less about romantic love and more about love of chosen family. And just like the TV show, we are in a world, it's sort of a post-apocalyptic, post-pandemic world where a man does whatever he can to save a young woman who is in danger. And they go, and interestingly enough, the game, some of it takes place in Massachusetts, but these two characters come across other small pockets of people who have made a life and family and found love amid all of this horror of the world, which feels unfortunately very timely. So, beyond the story, forcing the players to have empathy, some of these games pretty specifically ask you to make personal choices in a relationship. Do you show a lover a note that might upset them, or do you not? Do you say yes to a date, or do you not? And it makes you think about, like, what are we doing in the real world?
Okay, and then we got the Hot Dads podcast,
Lessons
too.
with Daddies.
Yes. So tell us about that one.
So I talked to this Rochester Institute of Technology researcher, and I said to her, what games should I be playing to get better at my social skills in relationships and my decision-making in relationships and communication? And one game she recommended is called Dream Daddy. Dream Daddy is an animated game where you show up, you are a daddy, you are a single dad in a neighborhood, and you are introduced to other men in your neighborhood. Everybody is a gay man in this world. It is a utopia for many. And you, as the playing person, get asked out on dates, you ask out people on dates. And I found, as a straight woman playing this game, I was learning good lines about how to make new friends. I was making good decisions or bad decisions as just a person in the world. Is this safe to leave with someone you don't know? It's just such a fun way of being reminded of how to be a person in the world. So I highly recommend Dream Daddy, no matter who you are.
We have a photo, by the way, we're going to pop. Oh, there it is on the live stream.
Yeah. They're very attractive daddies. There's no question about it.
They're very dreamy. It's so funny. And I played with our podcast producer, and she just kept saying, like, everybody's a daddy. And I was like, everyone is a daddy. We are in this neighborhood, and we're gonna find our matches.
Okay, I want to mention one more podcast before it gets to love letters, because this is the one about the young woman who's married, wants to have children, but ends up taking a little vacation by herself for 2 weeks to South Africa and meets the hot photographer.
Oh, this is actually, some of these stories, this whole season is about whether people can change. And from the perspective of video games, it is, can video games change us? This woman is a journalist who went to South Africa, fell in love with a photographer, and realized he had a substance abuse problem. And It's a really complicated story about loving someone, realizing that you can't change someone else. And also, she learns about herself, that she also has some addiction issues in the form of love addiction. And she talks to us about what that looks like. And it's a really fascinating story just about wanting to love someone, but accepting you can't change them. You can only change yourself. So it's a heavy topic, but it's beautifully told.
We learned, though, that there's hope that these Wegovy drugs can deal just not with weight, but with addiction. So maybe we won't have to worry about
From Paul Revel's son a couple of weeks ago.
Paul Revel's son, yeah.
I hope so that there are more opportunities. We're still learning, it seems like, from all the experts that I spoke to, so much about addiction and what can be done.
How many total episodes have you done on the podcast through the years, roughly?
Oh, I think we're at about 100. I mean, they are we don't have long seasons, but every one feels like its own.
Okay, so what we wanted to do today, Marjorie and I talked, and it's going to require you to be brief. Marjorie would like to discuss all 100 of them today, if that's possible.
I want to know, before we move to the love letters section, so what is your conclusion about people changing? Can they, can't they? It depends on age, depends on I mean, what?
I think
Marjorie wants to know if she can change. Go ahead.
I think the answer is sometimes, and sometimes if we really want to, and also there's a little love for ourselves when we can't. And I have changed in doing this season. It has made me, hearing other people's stories have made me think about how I can kind of have a negative lens on a lot of things that are actually really positive.
Yeah. We have negative lenses.
Wait, can you give us an example of that? All we have is a negative lens on this show.
Particularly negative lens.
Give us one example. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm often thinking about what didn't go right in a moment. What did I not do enough of? What did I not hear that I hoped I would hear? And not taking apart the pieces of the day that were actually really great. Like, I'm going to have a sandwich after this today that is going to be so good. And there might have been 3 annoying things on the tea, but I got extra avocado and I paid too much for it, but I am so excited. And these moments of pleasure that I skip right over to get to the to-do list, and that is something for me that came out of this season. Hearing people say part of the change they needed was to notice happiness, because right now we are trained to notice everything because there is so much misery, but if there's a little bit of happiness there, lean in, my friends, not to use that phrase, but enjoy your avocado.
Well, what kind of sandwich? Just plain avocado or avocado with something?
Hummus.
Oh, hummus and avocado. Very nice.
Yes.
About a pound of bacon on top of that would really complete the picture beautifully.
And this, by the way, to talk about letters,
yes.
There is a letter recently that spoke to this. It's from a woman who said, "How come I can't just enjoy my husband?"
Oh yes,
and I love this letter.
Is this the gratitude book one? I was going to ask you.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And this is a great example of how a podcast season and its stories changed me and probably changed my advice to this woman. Where this woman writes in, her marriage seems fine, her husband seems great, but she is just picking apart every little thing, cannot enjoy herself. And I think it's a trained thing to notice good stuff. I think the first day I tried it, I wasn't that great at it. By day 15, I was noticing great things everywhere. So I just wanted this letter writer to say, I'm going to force myself to notice. She says in one sentence, my husband's fine, he's great, whatever. Tell me more about why he's so great. Because she's frustrated with herself, too.
But when you said, that was the one in which you said she should put together a gratitude journal.
Yeah, and
do you
by
mean
the way,
literally a gratitude journal or in your head kind of thing?
I am a very big eye roller when you say something like gratitude journal.
I was about to roll my eyes, too. That's why
I'm
asking.
all the way around in a circle. But also, there's a reason why people sell them. And if you have one, and there are gratitude journals, by the way, for very cynical people who hate the phrase gratitude journal, they have them catered to you and to me too, but it kind of forces you to write things down, notice. There are prompts. So I'm not talking about a one in your head. I'm talking about get a literal one, find the one that doesn't make you roll your eyes, and try it. It's not for everybody, but I'm doing some trying that I've never tried before, and they're a little helpful.
Do you know the expression, Zoe, our coworker, just wrote us a note. Do you know the expression glimmers?
Yeah, I do know.
Well, I didn't know it before. Well, you explain it.
This is just, and I hope I'm saying this right, so hopefully she can, I don't know if she's right there. But
the opposite of triggers, essentially, but go ahead.
Yeah, things that, that's the best way to say it, things that kind of force you to
feel good,
have nice, nice times.
That's great.
And for me, it might be avocado. For others, it might be something more complicated.
But people all think a lot of this stuff is New Age and baloney. For people that know the Jesuits out there, there's the Jesuit spiritual exercises that are from the 1500s, and part of it is doing an examine every day, for 5 minutes. You look at your day. And how do you start it? Every single day. Gratitude. What do you have to be happy for today? And then look at your day, the good parts and the bad parts, and how you reacted to it. So it's something that's been going on for centuries. It's a philosophy that's been going on.
The truly awful thing is for a cynical person like me to say, "Oh, some of this stuff, there's a reason why people like it, right? There's a reason why it feels good. We are so uncynical about ways to be physically healthier, and we don't probably pay enough attention to the practices for our mental health, right?
Yeah.
So, and then in turn, in a love letters lens, you wind up being bad in relationships. So it helps everything.
Speaking of love letters, Meredith Goldstein is with us. So of the columns and sets of advice you gave recently, I think the one that may have the broadest application is my work friend dropped me. Can you tell? This is really a horrible story.
I know. I felt really bad.
This letter made me very paranoid because it's about a friendship at work that develops where two couples hang out. An older person and a younger person develop a friendship at work that they wind up hanging out with their partners, and then one day they're not anymore. And it seems to be by the choice of the sort of less experienced younger person at work, where the social stuff is just not happening. And now the letter writer, it's like, what happened? And also, if you're a more superior person at work, you can't really dig into this. And, I thought a lot about the politics of workplace, not just romantic relationships, but friendships. There is a power imbalance here, right? Where like, can this letter writer go up and say what happened without them feeling like there might be retaliation? And this is about a friendship. So, I mean, I do love work friendships. My best friends come from the Globe often.
Mark Shanahan, we know very
yes,
well.
But, and there's no power imbalance there. And if there is one, it is that I am so powerful as a human that he must just sense my power everywhere. But I do think this was a complicated letter because there's nothing you can do, right? If they don't want to be your friends anymore, you have to be super classy about it. But I think it was that discomfort and also a betrayal, because the question was, well, did they stop hanging out with me because they're hanging out with a different manager type, and are they, were they only hanging out with me to get more attention at work? There was just like the vibes were very unpleasant.
But you sort of said move on, and and the move on is because when you use the word superior, you don't mean qualitatively. You mean they have more power in the place. Is it because of that you're saying that they can't confront it more directly?
I am,
because I wanted
saying,
them to.
Well, I mean, there is probably a very safe way to go up and say, like, I hope I haven't done anything, right?
Yeah.
That I hope I haven't. It was interesting. People in the comment section had a whole bunch of guesses. They thought, well, maybe what do you post politically on your social media? Are they objecting to maybe something in your personal life you're not even thinking about? Like, the whole, did I do anything wrong, or is there a reason for this? But that still puts the person on the spot.
Yeah.
To say, oh, no, it was nothing. We just got sick of you. Like, what are you going to say? I mean, I could also see going to somebody at work and saying, hey, like, I had this friendship. I don't have it anymore. I'm not sure why. And I just want that to be known. I mean, it's dicey. And I think that in this case, in the real world, if somebody stopped hanging out with you, you might confront them, you might not, but either way, you'd say, I don't want to give my time to someone who doesn't want it.
By the way, I didn't mean confront in a confrontational kind of way. I meant I felt so bad for this person.
I did too. And it's interesting because now that I am older, like, I also want to keep the empathy for the younger person who may be saying, they kept asking me to dinner and we kept going. And it's because I felt like I couldn't say no. And at some point I just set a boundary. Yeah. So it's just awkward. Life is so awkward.
I think that's true.
So we were just talking about gratitude. Now we read this story about this woman. It's two gay women, and one woman is talking about her new partner.
Is this the Japan one?
This is the Japanese one.
That's a good one.
And she describes this woman she's with as smart, an athlete, sexy job, definitely not a problem of attraction, great sex. She goes on and on and on. But she says, I don't feel that new relationship, butterflies in my stomach all the time.
Yeah, new relationship energy. This is a very big concept. Right, like, and sometimes when you feel new relationship energy, it means this is not good, because what you are really feeling is some sort of, overhyped, too intense kind of feeling. I think sometimes things are a slow burn. I think sometimes things are a slow burn, especially as you get older, because sometimes everything is a slow burn when you get older. It's like, just give me a second. I've got other things to worry about.
Just grateful you're burning it all.
Right. I don't have as much time to swoon over somebody as I used to in the beginning. So, but I wanted her to give this more time, because this idea that so many people say, oh, when I met them, I just knew. Don't say that to people. It makes everybody insecure. Did you just know, or did you just know you liked them and then it worked out?
Well, Heather just knew about the photographer. The moment she saw him, she was hot to trot, right?
Yes, and also they were somewhat mismatched based on where they were in their health issues. And so you can just know you're super into somebody, but I don't think you just know they're right for you in the long term. And so just the idea that somebody looks good on paper is really enjoyable and you're still getting to know them, that energy may show up when you least expect it. And I think that's okay. If you find yourself not wanting to show up for somebody, that's different. But if you're just like, where is the excitement, it might be coming.
So I've heard this thing about the dating world that you're supposed to give someone at least 3 dates. Do you think that's true?
I mean, sometimes in 10 minutes and you're like, this will not happen to me again. Or, listen, you're allowed to, but if you're like, this was a nice time, I don't think I want to make out with this person, but maybe a second date.
Yeah.
See how, and then maybe a third. I don't think there's a rule about this, but I do think
it's restaurant critics 3 times, isn't it? I think that's what the rule is. Yeah.
You have to go a few times. The other thing is like know yourself. If you're someone who is so critical, if you don't have that gratitude journal, and if you're likely to find fault with someone, you might need the 3 times to see the good. So yeah, I like, but I have absolutely in my younger years went on some first dates where I was like, no, thank you. And that was the right move.
No,
that was the
thank
right
you.
move.
Okay, that's enough.
Hey, we only
See you later.
I've asked this before, so my apologies, because I know you're going to say to yourself, how many times are you going to ask me the same question? I just forgot the answer. A couple of days ago, you did one of those classic love letter things where you printed a letter and advice you gave 10 years ago. The question I asked you before, and apologies, I can't remember the answer. Do you ever reach out? I know some people get back to you to give you an update. Do you ever reach out? And if you don't, it's because, do you think it's unethical? What do you do? Do you ever check back in yourself rather than them checking in with you?
I do, but I try to get vibes from the letter. Like if I can tell this was a secret from their spouse, I'm not going to take the risk that the spouse checks the email. Never like, but if this is, and often they do just reach out if they want to reach out.
By the way, an anonymous concerned texter said, Jim, you should do a gratitude journal. It could help
That's right.
you. It probably could help me.
You should. Okay, so the season on changing yourself, is that done now?
No, we've got a few more episodes, and they're really good. And one that features my sister, and
I love your sister.
We love your sister. I was just going to say, we love your sister.
You're gonna love this one. There are tears. There is talk about coffee makers and the concept of success in relationships. So yeah, we've got I think it runs through early June this season. So we've got a lot of great.
Oh, good. Okay.
Hey, before you go, is that
Meredith has changed.
She says she has. Well,
I love that.
We'll decide. Is that a real view out the window at the Globe, or is that a fake back?
It's a mural. It's a mural.
Great.
It makes the city look fantastic. Outside, it's much gloomier, but it looks great behind me.
Meredith, it's great to see you as always. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Meredith. We've been speaking with Boston Globe Love Letters advice columnist and the great podcast host, Love Letters, Meredith Goldstein. Thank you very much, Meredith, for being with us. After a quick break, she's gone such in a hurry. You know why?
We should have asked her about the Am I the A-hole today. She would have been the perfect person.
You know where she is? She got the avocado and hummus sandwich.
Apparently she does, yeah. She was smiling a lot at the end of the call. She disappeared
really quickly. She didn't give us an extra second there. Anyway, after a quick break, it is time for the Am I the A-hole segment, my favorite segment every week. A wife can't stand her husband's constant annoying whistling. Can she find peace without having to duct tape his mouth closed or move into a different house? Weigh in next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, lawyers for the Tufts international graduate student arrested by ICE are in federal court today to face the Trump administration. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is celebrating the defeat of a lawsuit challenging the White Stadium renovation. And honeybees are dying at an unprecedented rate, posing a threat to wildlife and the human food supply. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Cambridge School of Culinary Arts in Porter Square, offering private cooking events for your next team building activity, family reunion, birthday party, or night out. You can learn more at cambridgeculinary.com. And The Huntington, with Ricardo Perez Gonzalez's wickedly funny tragedy, Don't Eat the Mangoes, the saga of 3 Puerto Rican sisters and their secrets. Now through...
You'll understand the relevance in a minute. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. So every relationship, as we've just discussed, has its trials, issues, couples have to work through. How they load a dishwasher. We've done many a show on that. Their cooking skills, beard trimmings in the bathroom, the sound of chewing. What's that called again? Flippia? Phonia, thank you. Those sort of things. For one anonymous woman who wrote into the Atlantic's James Park, her issue is her husband whistling. She writes that, I love this is in quotes. She writes that this man, quote, fancies himself a kind of performer. This man is her husband, by the way, having done theater in school and a brief stint as a child commercial actor. You know, I made one commercial when I was a kid. Did I ever tell you that on the air?
No.
I did, yeah. Nowadays, though, his performances have taken the form of near constant whistling. Sometimes it's your standard tongue between the teeth. Other times it's high-pitched. But the key here, it is constant. It's driving his wife nuts, but her problem is she feels she can't tell him to put a cork in it, I guess literally, for fear he'll blow up and make it into a whole thing. So our question on today's Am I the A-Hole at 877-301-8970, is the wife an a-hole for being so annoyed by her husband's incessant whistling, just a happy-go-lucky ex-theater kind of guy, complaining about him in the Atlantic before being honest about how it makes her feel? Or is the husband an a-hole for being totally oblivious to the reality that nobody wants Whistling Dixie as a life partner? The number's 877-301-8970. I guess you could include almost any a pervasive habit that your partner engages in that gives him or her pleasure but causes you great annoyance. In this case, it is whistling. The number's 877-301-8970. So who's the a-hole, the whistler or the whistlee?
Well, I think maybe she could, get noise-canceling headphones or something.
That's not a horrible idea.
Yeah.
So she's the a-hole because he gets joy out of it.
I don't know if she's the a-hole. I could see where you would be driven crazy by it. This is a semi a-hole situation. On the other hand, you do think that the guy could have some consideration for his wife's sensibilities.
He likes whistling.
I mean, she talks about first sound she hears in the morning and the last sound she hears at night. And she talks about, did you mention the differentiation among the whistles?
No, I did not.
Oh, yeah.
Barely. Well, I did, but not
really.
really.
He has three types.
Yeah.
The standard whistle.
Yeah.
With lips pursed,
the
tongue between the teeth whistle, which is more high-pitched,
and
a lazy whistle where he's sort of blowing air with no real tune, which he says is the most grating one. And he just does it all the time. If it's a song in his head or something on the air, it drives her crazy, but it sounds like he's not going to stop.
Okay, so you've done what you often do, is come down firmly on both sides. One is the a-hole and one is not. Who is the a-hole?
What do you think?
I think there are arguments to be made for both. I was doing that to mock you.
This could be semi a-hole.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
By the way, the word that was telling to me is grating.
Grating.
I'll give you an example. By the way, we spend many hours together every day.
We do.
Other than 11 to 2.
I know there are many things I do that drive you crazy.
There are,
Jim.
and I'm going to list them in a couple of minutes, actually. No, but let's assume it's 8 to 11 when we go on the air, and 2 to 3 when we're still hanging out here. What if I whistled the whole time? How would you feel about that, really?
I think it would drive me a little bit crazy.
Exactly. And so I think he should whistle less. And I understand it brings him great joy, but I would say the compromise is if it brings you great joy, go to your wife and say, I know it causes you great annoyance, so I'm not going to stop whistling, but I will whistle less. So if he's not willing to do that, he is the a-hole, I should say.
A lot of listeners want to know about your childhood TV commercial, whether it was for Liverwurst or Dickies. Or broadcast.
Actually, I shouldn't have brought it up because I
can't believe I didn't know
when you
about
say
that.
something that you know as you're saying it is a huge mistake.
Big revelation.
It was a local commercial.
For what?
It was for Sally Starr's show.
Sally
Starr was a big cowgirl host of cartoons and things.
Oh.
And I did a little commercial. It was a little kid saying how much I loved it.
I love Sally Starr.
I love Sally Starr. I did say I love Sally Starr.
How old were you?
I was 27. No, I don't know. It was 10 or something. I'm sorry I said it. Forget I said it. Marjorie has not taken a position on who was the a-hole. And by the way, I want to expose something else about Marjorie, which I did not know. She did not know I had been in a commercial as a kid. I did not know that one of the two of us cannot whistle.
I can't.
Try it now. That is one of the most pathetic things.
I don't know why.
Try it one more time.
Can't do it. Can't do it. It's awful.
So no one would be upset about you whistling around the house all day because you can't whistle.
I cannot do it. I don't know why.
By the way, if anybody wants to whistle when they call in, briefly, we'd be very happy to have
Now, Ed in Rhode Island says that Winston Churchill hated whistling. Says he's not sure if it fits in today, but he hated it.
That's nice to hear. Do you have a position yet before we start taking the calls? Or you're still straddling the whole thing.
I think that they're both semi a-holes for not trying to accommodate each other.
Yeah, it's not very satisfying.
He should not whistle as much.
Why?
And
I
she
said
should
that.
get
Whistle less.
A set of those Bose noise canceling.
So what do you wear them all day long? You wear them all day?
No, or you could put earbuds in and listen
all
to
day?
podcasts.
You wear them all day?
I listen to podcasts all day.
All day?
Obviously.
Okay, let's go to Eric in Arlington. You're first on the Whistling Hour here on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Who's the a-hole, Eric?
Well, being a competitive whistler myself, I whistle all the time.
No.
And
whoa, wait. Don't even say another word. You're a competitive whistler?
I was a competitive whistler, yes.
What does that mean to be a competitive whistler?
Well, I competed in international whistling competitions. People from, I think something like 20 different countries came for competing in this.
Oh, my God. Well, before you tell us who the a-hole is, obviously, since you said you're a competitive whistler, can you give us a little, like 20 seconds or something?
Okay.
Go ahead. My God.
Oh, my God.
That's good enough.
That's
was
fabulous.
great.
In all seriousness, that
Wow.
was really...
Wow.
Okay, so since you have some expertise in this area, who is the a-hole, Eric?
Well, I guess I would say it could be either one. If the person that doesn't like it has asked the whistler, could you not whistle now? And the whistler still whistles, then I would say it would be the whistler.
Excellent point.
But if the other person hasn't asked them to stop whistling, I would say just put up with it. And then the other thing, and this is a tough one for me, in that I want to encourage other people to whistle, but if they can't whistle in tune, I can see how it could be grating.
You are so right.
That is a great point. There is nothing worse than somebody being off key and not knowing it.
Now,
and subjecting everybody
Eric,
else to
before you go, because I can't believe our first caller is a former competitive whistler, can you teach people who are adults who cannot whistle to whistle, like Marjorie, Eric?
I think so. I don't know if I can teach them to whistle in tune, but I could teach them how to actually make a sound.
Okay. Eric, can you play us one little...
On the way out, do one little
do
thing
one
on the
before
way.
you go.
This is beautiful. Go ahead, Eric.
Ready.
Hold on. Let me think of something I'm going to whistle. I didn't have
it's fine.
Didn't have an idea.
This guy is incredible.
Wow.
I want you to know I am putting you in my gratitude journal, Eric. Eric, that was so uplifting. That was fabulous. Eric from Arlington, former competitive whistler. How lucky are we that was our first call? Is that great?
That was fantastic.
How great was he?
It was like could listen to that all day.
Was that Blue Bio, the second song?
I don't know.
I think it was Blue Bio, yeah.
But you know,
Is that what it's called?
I think this is from the AOL.com, the answer that it's one of those you write in about the whistling and the person answers.
Yeah.
Now, the person that answers this, who supposedly has some expertise.
Oh, the Atlantic is where this is from.
So they sense a lot of backed up marriage stuff here,
I think so too, yeah.
That his reaction to your reaction, to your reaction to his reaction. It might be all about taking out the garbage and who shovels the snow and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
We should have asked Eric about his partners and how they feel about him whistling beautiful tunes like he did there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Doug in Reading. Are you a former competitive whistler, Doug, or no?
No.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Go ahead. What's your position here?
Just get her earplugs.
Boy, you were really opinionated there.
No, you're very sympathetic.
Been married twice. I live alone now.
No whistling in your house. See you later.
I whistle all I want.
Now, Doug,
that's
did you hear Eric whistling a couple of seconds ago?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Can you do anything? Can you whistle or no? No, this is unbelievable.
Wow. You sound like a bird.
Is that like what kind of bird was that exactly, Doug?
I've been doing that since I've been a little kid. I don't know. It's just a little trick I do with my tongue.
Well, that is beautiful. I think we should leave it there. Thank you, Doug. That was excellent call. Thank you very much for the call. She should get earplugs.
Okay, that's what he said.
That's your position, too.
Erin from Brooklyn, I was talking about what do you call them? The Bose noise-canceling headphones. People wear those on airplanes, you've seen. Erin in Brooklyn says, whistling should be illegal, especially in public. My boyfriend loves to whistle, and she's trying to learn tolerance.
Well, if you think, if you should be illegal, that's because you have not heard this scene from To Have Not.
Oh, my God.
Lauren
This is
Bacall, who, as it says in the very sultry Lauren Bacall, with some advice for Humphrey Bogart on how to whistle. This is, again, from the 1944 film To Have and Have Not.
You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve?
Listen to her.
You just put your lips together and blow.
Pretty great scene there.
Yeah.
Well, remember Lauren Bacall when she was punched out in The Sopranos? Do you remember that scene in The Sopranos? Yeah.
Was that the
Punched
the
out in
end?
The Sopranos. It was
By
pretty
whom?
shocking, actually. I can't remember. Any case,
Someone suggested that the wife should put wind chimes and a fan next to his reclining chair and see how he likes that.
can we read the note, the bottom note that one of our coworkers, I thought the same thing. I just don't think we can read that, can we? I guess not. Okay, that's too bad. Ian...
Don't read that.
We should never do that on radio. Say
Okay.
I've got something really funny and I can't read it. Ian in Somerville, you are on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Marjorie.
Hi, Ian.
First of all, I completely regret calling again, following up the phenomenal performance from Eric. I mean, that was something.
Was that incredible?
Yeah.
I'd love to see the whistling competition in person.
So would I,
So would I.
My wife there, too, and she'll learn some tolerance. I think she's the a-hole. You know, she should be lucky she has this happy-go-lucky man in her life who has a song in her heart. And if it's really that annoying, hey, go to a different room. Get some earbuds in.
Exactly.
Enjoy the
There
company
you
of
go.
her husband who's this happy guy.
Yeah.
And that, by the way,
I can
Ian,
whistle, but not as good as Eric.
that is important because she does acknowledge, I don't know if she uses the word happy, that it does make him feel really good.
Yep.
Because he sees himself as sort of performative.
He
kinda.
does.
That's our word, not mine. Can you
Ian, that was-
whistle or not, Ian?
A little bit.
Go
I
ahead.
feel a little bit on the spot having, with Eric having just.
No,
gone,
everybody is. We take people as we find them.
Can't
Give
be
us a
worse
little.
than my whistle.
Go ahead, Ian. Go ahead.
Okay, 1 second.
Take your time.
All right,
That was
Not bad.
It was an excellent start.
Not bad.
Slowed down after the second note. But Ian, thanks for the call. Call us again. Bye.
Okay, here's George from New Hampshire.
What does he say?
The wife should get over it. I can think of a lot worse sounds to be coming out of her husband's body.
That is hard. That is worse than what I was going to read.
And here's Ben from Peabody. My daily existence gives me great pleasure, but it is a source of great annoyance to my spouse.
That's very funny. That's
The long married suffering man. There you go. Mike in Providence.
Before you go, Mike, wouldn't you, like that guy just called, how much would you love to go to a whistling competition? Would that be fun?
the guy from
I wouldn't
Arlington.
travel to like California
He
for
was
it.
he was unbelievable.
He was excellent.
Yeah.
He was singing a couple of whistling a couple of things there that you could actually recognize.
Yeah.
Could you try whistling one more time?
No, I'm not going to do it anymore.
Okay, fine.
I can't do it.
Mike in
obviously.
Providence, I'm sorry. Take it away.
No, thank you so much, guys. I think your show might have just hit your pinnacle. Having a professional whistler.
That is a very good
I think
point.
you're right.
Mike, very good
You're
point.
right.
Go ahead.
Think of the pickup line that guy now has. Incredible. The memoir that could come of this gentleman.
That's right. He was fantastic, was he not?
No, he was very good.
Do you know how to whistle, Mike?
I mean, of course. Marjorie, I'm sorry, but I was going to say I think everyone can, but apparently not. I'm sorry.
No, I can't.
So give us a little whistle, then tell us who the a-hole is. Take it away, Mike. Go.
Oh, my gosh.
Just
I'm gonna
short.
whistle it too. This is putting me on the spot as well.
Wow.
So,
excellent.
That was excellent.
James Taylor. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
No, I think it's hilarious because I'm in the exact same predicament. I feel like I whistle because it's a happy, pleasant sound. You know, when I'm in a nice mood, the whistle comes out. And my wife, of course, hates that. I think it's so funny that the opinion, even by your texters, seems to be, divided by gender line. All the males seem to think it's a nice, happy, pleasant thing. And the ladies can't stand it, apparently. I'm sorry.
Well, so how you dealing with it in your household, Mike?
I'm not allowed to.
No,
Oh,
that
you're-
is not true.
He has to go out in the backyard. He has to walk down to the corner.
I have to do it behind the scenes in private.
I'm sorry.
No, wait a
Mike.
second. So is your wife said to you, I forbid you from whistling in the house? Is that what it's come down to?
No, she's just told me that it's too annoying and I'm not allowed to. So, of course, I'm a good husband and I listen. But
Wow.
Oh,
That
wow.
is really sad story.
Well, doesn't she do anything that annoys you, Mike? She must do something.
Excellent point.
Marjorie, first of all, are you trying to set me up? No, my wife is perfect and I love her. Oh, my God, what a question.
Mike, can I tell you, anytime you feel frustrated and want to whistle on our show, give us a call. Mike, good luck
I'm
to
going to
you.
whistle the rest of the way home.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, Mike. That was another excellent call. Thank you.
Donna on the road says Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory put it in his roommate contract with Leonard, no whistling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here, Hannah just wrote us a note. I heard a man whistling What Was I Made For from Barbie this week. It was very sweet. And by the way, sweet is a good word. Don't you occasionally hear somebody whistling? And
they sound happy.
Yeah.
Someone just texted said, my father used to whistle when he was doing chores around the house. It gave him so much pleasure. It gave me so much pleasure because I knew my father was happy, and her father's no longer with her. So there you go. Yeah, I think you do think of whistling a happy kind of thing. Jennifer in Arlington says she thinks humming or whistling is the way people deal with stress or an uncomfortable situation, and it's kind of unconscious. Humming runs in my family. She said her father was a hummer.
You can hum, obviously, right?
Yes, I can hum.
Okay.
But I knew someone that would hum when they knew that they kind of screwed people, that they knew that they had won a little dust up within the family.
Oh, like humming, like I gotcha?
Yeah, like that.
Oh, that's aggravating. What'd you do about that?
Nothing.
Who was it?
I'm not saying.
Okay, fine.
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Let's go to, we're talking about the whistling conundrum.
Oh.
We should be resetting this. Let's explain what happened. There's a guy who is whistling, the husband is whistling a lot. It is driving him all the time, according to his wife. He, quote, fancies himself a kind of performer. She is totally appalled by the whistling behavior, and we want to know who's the a-hole, the intolerant whistlee or the whistler who appears to be insensitive to the annoyance being suffered by his wife. Where do you want to go? What?
Somebody, M from Acton says, get him a muzzle.
That is...
Like the dog.
You can whistle through a muzzle, I would say.
I think
probably.
it'd be hard, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people think this is an unhappy marriage. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Jamie, you're in Chelmsford, I think. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Excellent.
Excellent. So I think the guy is the a-hole, but with a caveat.
Why?
If she hasn't said anything about, honey, your whistling is really annoying, then she needs to do that.
I think she has, actually. We didn't say that.
Oh, then
she
he's
says
totally the a-hole.
She says she's tried many times.
Go ahead.
I want to say to Jim, I loved Sally Starr.
No, do you grow up in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. And did I describe her adequately? She'd wear a little cowgirl dress and a cowboy hat.
Pink
And
sparkly cowboy hat and vest.
Exactly.
Bright blonde hair. I got to meet her once when she came to the local corner store.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, you made my day, Jamie. That is great. Jamie, it's a pleasure talking to you. Call us again. Thanks so much. Sally Starr was here. You know who Sally Starr was like? What was the name of the guy with the kids here? I didn't grow up here.
Captain Kangaroo?
No, here. Captain Kangaroo.
Roy Rogers?
No, here in Boston. What was the name of the guy who was...
the guy...
So famous.
Rex Trailer.
Rex Trailer.
Rex Trailer.
She was sort of like the Rex Trailer of Philadelphia.
Okay, listen to this from Meredith. The wife is the a-hole if she doesn't tell him calmly, quietly, and seriously. The husband is the a-hole if he doesn't pay attention and try to do something about it. But at least these two jerks have found each other.
The Fawn, you're in Rhode Island. You're on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I am in Rhode Island. I'm originally from Connecticut, and it's
great.
hard living here. There's nothing here. Anyways, they're both a-holes.
Wait a second. What do you mean there's nothing here?
What?
Where do you live in Rhode Island?
Foster. Have you been here?
No. What's wrong with
that's kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, is that the problem?
You're right.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
It really is. I'm
Okay.
from southeastern Connecticut, where you're right down on everything.
I got it.
Anyhow,
Go ahead.
they're
Sorry.
both a-holes, dears.
Why is that?
They both are, because whenever I'm in a salty mood for some reason, and he walks by and he starts to whistle, it sounds sarcastic to me.
Yeah.
It just makes me angry. But then on the other hand, sometimes just because I'm pissed off, excuse me.
It's okay.
I will sing along with him.
Are you good?
That really annoys him. That really gets me pissed off.
Oh, you're a good one, Fawn.
I can play it that way too, baby.
Can you share a little of your skill with us for a second, Fawn?
Sure. Let's see.
Go ahead. Fawn.
I think we lost Fawn.
I think we lost Fawn. That's sad because I had a feeling she could really do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, apparently other
like
people.
the attitude a lot.
Apparently. Oh, we should play this champion whistler. We have sound from a champion whistler.
We just had a champion
Sean
whistler.
Lomax. We haven't
Who the hell
heard.
is he?
He's an international grand champion whistler. He's got some advice for inspiring whistlers.
Wait, is he going to whistle or inspire or talk?
God,
Advice.
I hope he's
What's
going
he
to
doing?
whistle.
Well, let's play it.
Breathing is everything. You want to be able to. The trumpet player, for example, is breaking the notes.
Oh. Oh.
And that is what you're doing with your tongue.
Ooh.
It's very difficult. And again, it takes practice.
Wow.
Okay. Well,
So you know what? Andrew from Southborough says he can't whistle either. So I'm in good
I
company.
know a few people who can't whistle. I don't understand, but why? If you practiced, like if you said, I really want to, when you were a kid, and I assume you were humiliated that you couldn't whistle, did you say, I got to teach myself how to whistle? Or you didn't care enough?
No, I don't know why. I never really get into whistling in a big way.
It's really shocking,
Yeah.
actually, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Let's go to Kristen in Lynn. I was
Kristen
reading the text, Jim.
I know you were. Hi, Kristen. How are you?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
I think so. Hi, Kristen. Welcome. Nice to have you.
Yeah, first time, long time.
Thank you
I'm
so
on my
much.
lunch break.
That's great. What's up?
So I think the wife is the asshole.
Why?
Because, well, and everybody was saying, oh, it's along gender lines. The guys are happy to whistle. The ladies are pissed about it. But I'm a lady, and I'm a whistler.
Oh, another one.
Go ahead.
Yes.
And?
So when I whistle absentmindedly, sometimes I don't even know I'm doing it. If my husband wants some peace and quiet, he'll just tell me, oh, hey, you're whistling. It's bothering me right now. Oh, okay, no problem. And I'll hold off for a while. It's not that big of a deal.
Wait a second. Does he ever appreciate your whistling and it only occasionally aggravates him, or it always aggravates him?
I think that it only aggravates him sometimes if he's in a bad mood or if he's trying to concentrate on something. And same thing, if he's making noise in the house, I'll either put on headphones or I'll tell him to pipe down.
So let's hear it, because I believe you described yourself as pretty good at this. Did you not say that?
Well, I'm not a professional whistler.
That's okay. You don't need to be professional. We'd like to hear. What are you going to perform for us, Kristen? What do you know?
I think is it Rhapsody in Blue? Is that what I'm going to do?
On my honor, I'm not kidding.
We're
I was
ready.
going to ask the competitive whistler to do Rhapsody in Blue. Go ahead. Take it away, Kristen.
All right, let's give it a try.
Go ahead. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Let me tell you who the a-hole is, your husband.
Can you sing
That
too,
is
Kristen?
incredible.
Is whistling related to singing, do you think?
I think so. I think it's all related. I think, whistling, maybe humming, singing. Yeah. I'm not a professional singer or anything, but I do like to sing.
Can I tell you, that almost gave me chills.
That was great.
Kristen,
Kristen,
you were
that was great. Now,
that was great. By the
we have
way,
a
thanks. Call us again. Nicole, our coworker.
Yes.
I can't whistle either, Marjorie. It's okay. I've still managed
That's right.
to have a good life.
And Henry
Nicole said.
Santoro whistles along with the BPR Billboard
does?
music every day before he reads his news on 89.7. And listen to this.
Sad.
Here's a way to end this thing, Jim.
What's that?
My husband is always sighing. He puts on his shoes. Huh. He's doing the dishes. Huh.
yeah.
He's starting the car. Huh. I've given up asking him what's wrong every second of the day.
Well, he's got to get dumped. I mean, he obviously has to. I mean, really, get rid of that slug.
He's sighing. Better whistling than sighing,
You can
John.
obviously,
Wouldn't you
you're
say?
good.
Do you know
I
how
would
to
bet
whistle?
you're really good. You're not?
No, not at all.
You can't at all?
I can barely whistle.
Me too.
I certainly can't keep a tune. No.
I can't whistle.
If you can't whistle, could you do me one other favor? Could you, your Catherine
I
Hepburn
knew this was coming.
imitation?
No,
Can you do that?
I don't
Okay.
know what you're talking about.
Okay.
My mother can do that thing where you put the fingers in your mouth and
On
do that.
my whole life,
awful
I've
whistle.
wanted to be. I can't do that.
I would always be mortified because it would be across the little league field.
can
Like,
hear
I
it.
do not know her. That did not just happen.
And it's so loud when
It's
you do it that
so
way.
loud.
It's so loud.
Yeah, it stops everybody.
A lot of people can do that, though, right?
Did you hear that woman whistling
She was
Rhapsody
great.
in Blue?
I'm late coming in here because I was just sitting in the control room listening to it. It was
She
really
was
lovely.
great.
It was terrific.
Yeah.
And the guy,
You ever had a competitive whistler on your show like we did?
No, we're way
did.
behind at the Culture
well,
Show.
the culture show, I think you should have a whistling competition.
Can you
Do
imagine
you think
that?
we should have a whistling competition?
That'd be
Then I
great.
would be writing into
Live.
Reddit and saying, how annoying is...
Okay, I have to eat this yogurt, so can you tell us what you're doing there? I'll eat while
we
you're
have
talking.
Cicely Carew is on the show, artist who has a show at the Fuller Craft Museum. You may have seen her work, very public art installations. She's a Foster Prize winner, but she just creates these atmospheres of joy voice, so we'll talk to her about that. And then there's a show called It's a Mother Effing Pleasure that's at Arts Emerson right now, and it's a disability-forward theater troupe which takes on all the tropes about disability, and it's a huge satire, so we'll talk to one of its stars.
What a clever idea.
It is, and it's very funny. I saw it last night. And then New England Aquarium, you probably read, has its new home for geriatric penguins.
I saw that.
So we're going to be talking to the New England Aquarium about what they are doing and why they're doing it for the golden girls and boys penguins.
Can you do us one favor? Because we were going to do this tomorrow, but you can do it today. Can you ask the aquarium person how the penguins feel about being tariffed by Donald Trump?
Donald Trump tariffed them.
They are. What is that?
Actually, Brian on the show was just showing me some little penguin island is received.
Exactly.
That's what you're talking about.
McDonald's Island.
That's right. Seals and penguins and invertebrates and birds.
No people.
By the way,
Zero.
you think of penguins, they always walk kind of funny when they're little.
Yeah.
What do they do when they're geriatric? I mean, they really swaying from side to side, little
Such a
feet?
good question.
I don't know. That's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they just sit and knit. I don't think they do a lot of walking.
That's not a good point. Okay, we'll be listening. So,
okay, bye.
Thank you, Jared. Okay, thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. We have a podcast, and we also have a TikTok page. You can check them both out at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, we're back at the Boston Public Library. It's Live Music Friday. We're going to have a great performance from the Boston Lyric Opera's 80th anniversary production of Carousel. Somebody corrected me. Carousel's from the 1940s. I said it was from the 1960s, so it's
I thought
really,
it was the 60s, too, actually.
Yeah, and Lee Pelton, one of our frequent guests from the Boston Foundation, he is performing in Carousel.
He's going to be there tomorrow. I think he's going to be there with the singers.
He's going to sing a few tunes.
Well, I don't think he's going to sing
Walk through a cloud, hold your head up high.
Okay, fine.
Plus,
I love
GBH's
that
Callie
song, by
Crossley,
the way.
the Boston Globe's Shirley Young, media maven Sue O'Connell and Adam Riley for our media analysis segment, Press Play.
And Sue's zooming in from the Karen Reed
Sue
trial,
is
by the
zooming
way.
in from the trial. That's right. Nicole, I'm very sorry, Nicole Garcia, that you can't whistle. But
either.
I somehow have managed to get through life not being able to whistle either, but I wish I could. We want to thank the rest of our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Hannah Loss, our engineer, John the Claw Parker. Bill Piacicelli is on the board today for John, who's got the day off. Our executive producer.
Trending. What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show. Next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And McLean Middleton. For over 100 years, McLean Middleton has been dedicated to serving its clients and its community, offering guidance through the complexities of today's